All right, I'm going to go ahead. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to our board meeting. Thank you. I would like to call this meeting to order. Roll call. Mrs. Richards, may I have the roll call, please?
Yes. President Michelle Anderson, let the record show that all 5 board members are present this evening.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I motion to approve tonight's agenda. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next action item, approval of the superintendent contract and authorization authorizing the governing board to execute the superintendent contract as approved by the governing board. Any board member wishing to make a comment? I motion to approve the superintendent contract and authorize the governing board to execute the contract.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And we're going to come down. Yes, I'm going to come down and introduce Dr. Carmen is here with us tonight. He's standing right here. Go ahead and introduce himself. Thank you. And make a comment.
Well, thank you. I want to thank the Higley Unified School District Governing Board for giving me this great opportunity to serve as your next superintendent. I am humbled at being named for this role with such a high-performing and well-respected district. At the same time, I'm excited to join the Higley team and work with the governing board, faculty and staff, and community to continue to prepare all students for limitless opportunities. Public education continues to provide the knowledge so that we maintain an educated populace. Our country's founders knew the importance of education for democracy to be successful. Thomas Jefferson stated the governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, but that it is education that makes that consent possible. As such, I am proud to be a part of public education, serving as a lifelong public educator for 30 years, beginning as a teacher and coach. I am still a teacher at heart, and as my role has expanded in administration to include 11 years as a superintendent in pre-K districts, I have and will continue to support teachers so they have what is needed to empower all students to be successful in their future endeavors. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to meeting our students, employees, and parents, and working with the entire Higley USD community. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is recognitions and awards. Mrs. Richards, what do you have for us tonight?
President Anderson, here comes another exciting Higley Adventures. We have a lot to celebrate this evening, so we'll get started. This is the year of the wooden dragon. HUSD held its annual Chinese New Year celebration on the evening of Tuesday, February 13th at our HCPA. Students participating in our Mandarin dual language immersion programs at Cooley Early Childhood Development Center, Coronado Elementary, and Williamsfield High School performed songs and traditional dance. In addition, we had Cooley Middle School students MC the event, and they took the show away. They provided explanations in Mandarin and then helped us out in English because we didn't know what they were saying. Before the performances, we had booths with crafts, games, and of course, food trucks. We are so proud of our students, staff, and event planners for the preparations that went into making this a success. It was beautiful, and if you weren't able to attend, we encourage you to participate next year. We may shake it up a little bit, but those fan dancers, for example, right there, were impressive. Next, meet your kindergarten principal day. Cooley and Sossaman preschool students and their families had the opportunity to meet our amazing HUSD elementary principals on this day that was either January 23rd or 25th. School leaders and mascots greeted our students, provided information, of course gave them some school swag, and got students and families excited about coming to HUSD. We also just completed the first round of kindergarten roundup. HUSD elementary schools hosted this on Tuesday, January 30th. School administrators and kindergarten teachers provided an exciting overview not only of the district, but of the kindergarten experience. Specific schools highlighted programs for parents and students. Families will have another opportunity to attend a roundup event hosted by our schools in either late February or early March. That information is posted on our website. We are excited to welcome the class of 2037 next school year. So I went to Santan today, and they had balloons, and they had that sign, and I was like, I'm not going to do the math on how old I'm going to be when we hit that. All right. In addition, we had our little preschoolers get ready for kindergarten by going on field trips to our feeder elementary schools. During these field trips, kinder prep students are getting tours of the school and learning about all the fun that we have at all of our campuses. I've heard amazing things from not only the teachers, but the principals, so they're ready to go. This year, we had student council groups from Sossaman Middle School, Chaparral Elementary, and Cortina Elementary attend the first ever public school Parents' Day at the Capitol. This was held on February 5th. A special shout out to Jessica Batista, who set this up for us and actually went with the students. They toured the House and the Senate and were introduced to the floor and had an opportunity to meet with Senator Hoffman. So it was a great learning experience. Is Carrie Matthew here? I don't know that she was going to be able to come tonight, but I don't want to skip over her. Carrie Matthew and the Higley High School academic decathlon team competed at the regional competition on February 2nd and 3rd, where Tori Tesh won first place in speech and first place in interview. Chase Goodwin earned second place in art. The team qualified for the state competition for the 10th year in a row, which will be held on March 8th and 9th, and we want to wish them the best of luck. So we don't have Chase or Tori in the audience, do we? So when you see them, congratulate them. Great job. Okay. Whoop, I went backwards. So I believe these people are here this evening. So I want to highlight them and then ask them to come up and have the board come down. Do I have Miss Panah Leatherby here this evening? Yes? Come here. Five students from Higley High and one student from Sossaman Middle School have been awarded a federal scholarship to study environmental sustainability. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. In Mandarin this summer at the University of Arizona. They'll be able to earn 2 college credits. This is a big deal, not only for our high school kids, but our middle school student as well. This program received an overwhelming number of applicants across the United States. However, these students from our district stood out with their impressive proficiencies at a young age. So I'm going to call your name. Please come join Miss Leatherby. Nicholas Dewey. Nathan Sue. Dylan Phillips. Carson Weingart. We also need for Savio Tack to come forward. And Maxwell Moser. Come on down. Higley is truly an innovative district that is preparing our students for limitless opportunities, and we are so very proud of all of you. Next, do we have Miss April French in the audience? All right. We want to congratulate the fabulous Higley High Thespian Troupe, led by Miss April French, for their outstanding success at the Arizona Thespian Regional Competition in January, where they received several superior ratings. And I hate to say it, but way to go, Knights! So I need all the students that received this amazing honor to come join your teacher. Right. Wow, impressive group, right? They work hard all year, and now we need to fit the board in there somehow. Congratulations. You know, when I said I hate to say it, way to go, Knights, there's a bunch of Williamsville people in here too. So we're going to get to them next, but what amazing kids we have in this district. Next, we have Allison Mainon. Are you in the audience here, Allison? Yes. All right, we're incredibly proud to announce that Williamsville High School senior Allison Mainon has been named a Flynn Scholarship finalist. This prestigious scholarship has thousands of applicants from across the state, and only 36 of them become finalists. Allison is also the valedictorian of her graduating class, a member of HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America, and a star tennis player. The next thing, I want to get a sample next time, because I heard you also own a business for decorating cakes. Is that true? Okay, so we're going to invite you to bring us a sample next time. So the Flynn Scholars Class of 2024 will be announced in April, and we wish you the best of luck. Impressive. All right, next we want to congratulate Mr. Joe Abrascudo and Mr. Devin Adams and the 9 students from Williamsville High School who He just told me 3 out of the 9. Come on. These students participated at the Future Business Leaders of America Regionals, a fantastic achievement, with 7 out of the 9 students earning regional medals. We're excited to inform you that they qualified for the spring state competition in Tucson. And when is that?
It is April 8th.
Okay, we'll be cheering for you over here. All right, congratulations. Okay, you have to love the name of this robotics team. They are called the Technical Terrors. It scares me to think about it. Williamsfield Varsity Robotics Team. Is Kelly Mahoney here this evening? All right. All right, this team competed a First Tech Challenge qualifier with 35 other teams on February 3rd. Not only were they competitive champs, but they also received the Inspire Award. This is the most prestigious award given to the team in this competition. They have to strongly embody the ideas of the First Tech Challenge. They must perform well on the field and off of the field. It must be an inspiration to those around them. This is a great honor. You don't really look like technical terrors, but I'm sure you are once you get on the field. Same kids. You want to go to the next one? Sure. The story goes on, right, Kelly? In addition, on Saturday, February 17th, Williamsfield's varsity robotics team, Technical Terrors, competed in the Arizona Championship, consisting of 48 teams, divided into the Saguaro Division and the Grand Canyon Division. After qualifying matches, the team was chosen to be part of the number 3 seeded alliance and went on to win the division semifinals and finals, becoming the champions. From there, they went on to beat Grand Canyon, and they achieved a state record score of 272, becoming Arizona's champions. So congratulations to Technical Terrors, and thank you to Horn Kia, family, and friends for supporting their amazing season. Good job. That's scary, except when you get your robot, right? Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad y'all are here. You notice they all have their medals with them. Lots of Right. We have amazing. All right, Mr. Lotzenheiser, we have state champs in the house again.
Yes, and continuing on our state championships from Williamsfield High School, I'd like to introduce Mr. Darrell Stengel, the athletic director of Williamsfield, to introduce our state champion cheer.
Madam President, members of the board, I want to thank you guys for inviting us here to honor this incredible group of young ladies. They put in countless hours and sacrificed so much to be able to do what they love in competing along with cheering on the rest of our programs. So they truly embody the selflessness that we ask of our Blackhawks. There are 3 major championships in Arizona State cheer: game day cheer, all-girl stunt, and show cheer. And our girls took 2 of the 3 championships in the 56-team second division in Arizona. So first on Thursday, our all-girls stunt team won the Division II championship. If we can have them come up. Just go right up there. This routine is a minute long. It's made up of a whole bunch of crazy stunts. They throw each other up in the air, they tumble, they flip. It's amazing to see. And these girls did this separately, even though they're part of our show cheer team too. They stayed after and also practiced to become the all-girl stunt team. So these 5 girls kicked it off by winning on Thursday, and also qualifying for the show cheer championship along with their teammates. And then on Saturday, all together, they competed and won the show cheer championship in Division II. Come on up, ladies. I also want to introduce Danielle DeGrief and Jen Selder, the soon-to-be mother, who coached this team to the championships.
Once again, big round of applause for the cheer squad. Why don't we have everyone come on out?
They were ready, President Anderson, for points of pride. And now I want to invite Principal Katie Harris and Assistant Principal Angie Walker up to the front.
I don't know if I have that on me. Yeah. Thank you so much. Just yell. I probably can do that. Thank you guys so much for having us tonight. I'm Katie Harris, the principal at Gateway, and this is Miss Angie Walker. Thank you guys so much for this opportunity. We look forward to this every year. The first person we are going to recognize is Miss Janine Lucchese. If you can come on up here. So as the title coordinator at Gateway, Janine has exhibited exceptional dedication, innovative thinking, and a profound commitment to the success of our students and the enhancement of our literacy intervention programs. In her role as title coordinator, Janine has been instrumental in developing and overseeing our Literacy Cafe intervention program. Her visionary leadership and tireless efforts have significantly contributed to the program's success and positively impacted the academic achievements of our students. Janine has demonstrated an unwavering passion for promoting literacy and ensuring that every student, and I mean every student, has the opportunity to thrive academically. One of Janine's notable strengths is her ability to collaborate effectively with colleagues, parents, and students alike, and her interpersonal skills and genuine concern for the well-being of those around her create an inclusive and supportive environment. Janine consistently goes above and beyond to tailor, it's her grandchild, it's okay, interventions to meet the unique needs of each student, fostering a love for reading and learning in the process. Sorry, I love you so much. I have so much to say. Beyond her exceptional work in program development, Janine's dedication to professional growth is evident through her continuous pursuit of learning and staying abreast of current educational trends. She actively seeks out opportunities for professional development, bringing fresh ideas and practices to Gateway. In addition to her professional contributions, Janine is a team player who readily supports her colleagues. Her positive attitude and willingness to assist others make her an invaluable asset to our community. So thank you for all that you do. And before we take a picture, who is here with you? Would you like to recognize them?
A crying baby that just went out. I have 3 of my 4 children here and 3 of my 5 grandchildren here. Yeah, so thanks for coming, guys.
I think you can just stay off to the side. All right, next, Mr. Lee, will you come on down? So Harley, or Lee, we call him Lee, just so you guys know. In his role as our dedicated plant foreman, Lee has not only excelled in his professional responsibilities, but has also become a cherished and respected figure among students, teachers, and parents alike. Lee's impact on our organization extends far beyond his duties as plant foreman. His commitment to maintaining a safe, efficient, and welcoming environment has earned him admiration from all corners of our community. Lee consistently goes above and beyond, ensuring that our facilities are not just functional, but also conducive to a positive learning environment. What sets Lee apart is his ability to connect with people. Students appreciate his friendly demeanor, always willing to answer their curious questions and share his knowledge. Teachers value his proactive approach to facility management, which allows them to focus on their core mission of educating students. Parents admire Lee's dedication to creating this as well. Lee's popularity among our community members is a testament to his exceptional interpersonal skills, genuine care, and approachable nature. His positive influence is felt through our organization, contributing to a collaborative atmosphere that enhances Gateway. We appreciate you. And who do you have here with you?
I have my wife, Lucia, my son in the back, Ben. I was going to say Benjamin, but you know. And then my daughter Winter.
So thank you guys for coming. All right, next can we have Miss Suzanne Brown come on down? Suzanne's contributions as a parent volunteer has been truly exceptional. Her involvement in various school activities, events, and initiatives have significantly enriched the educational experience for our students. Furthermore, Suzanne has been a source of inspiration and encouragement for both students and staff. Her positive and collaborative approach has created an inclusive atmosphere that resonates throughout our campus. Suzanne's ability to connect with students, teachers, and fellow parents are further strengthened in the sense of community at Gateway Point. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you do and you continue to do. You're a breath of fresh air every time you step on our campus. Oh, and you get to recognize, who do you have here?
I have with me my 3 kids, Gary, Tim, and Bella. Tim and Bella are Gators too, back there.
Thank you. All right, next we have Miss Kaya Kesey, who is one of our 2nd grade students that is coming up with Mrs. Walker. Let's give her a big round of applause. Kaya is a 2nd grade student that has attended Gateway since kindergarten. Her ability to overcome obstacles is nothing short of remarkable. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. She is an exceptional student who brings joy, laughter, and unique vibrancy to our school community. Kaya is not just a student, she is a beacon of positivity, intelligence, and warmth that brightens the lives of everyone fortunate enough to know her. In addition to her delightful personality, Kaya is exceptionally bright. Her intelligence shines through in her academic achievements and her interactions with peers and teachers alike. What stands out even more is Kaya's remarkable memory. She does not forget anything, I am telling you. She retains information with an impressive level of detail, showcasing her commitment to learning and her natural curiosity. Her parents are without a doubt a bonus to our school community. Their involvement and support have played a significant role in fostering a positive and collaborative atmosphere. The apple does not fall from the tree, and Kaya is a testament to the values instilled by her family. And I also want to say that she just won 2nd place at the Regional Braille Challenge in Arizona this past weekend. So let's give her hats off to that. Kaya, do you want to tell everybody who's here with you?
My mom's here, and my dad, and my 2 little brothers, Caden and Cash, and my teachers, and my TVI.
Oh, we love it. All right, you're going to stand right here. And we have a gift for you, Kaya. It's a balloon with some Smarties in it, because you're so smart. So you'll get to eat those when you get home. Okay? Are we ready for a picture now, guys? You're going to stay right here, and then you guys all get to come in too.
Thank you, Gateway Elementary. Next, Points of Pride is Mr. John Dolan with Higley Virtual Academy.
I got to follow Katie Harris. Boy. Yeah. President Anderson, cabinet members, welcome, Dr. Carmen. Thank you for this opportunity to share about not just the Higley Virtual Academy, but the limitless opportunities our students have when it comes to alternative programming here. So I'm certainly going to talk about some students that are online, but we're going to talk about a staff member that helps us in some other things. And we have kids, you know, when you look at them, we have all this opportunity in the traditional setting, but outside of it as well. We have kids who are going to take some classes online. We have some kids that might fall behind, and we have some summer opportunities for them. And then, of course, we have those kids that get to a point where in-person is not really working for them, and they need some way to graduate. And Mrs. Tommy Bird in her Higley Learning Center works with that. So I would like to first bring up the first person, Talon Gillespie. But why don't you tell us who's here with you?
I got my mom, my dad, my brother, my grandma, and my grandfather.
Okay, I told him I was going to embarrass him a little bit, so hopefully I do. So first, for Talon, when we talk about online classes, I think his sophomore year is when he probably started taking some classes with us. I remember him coming in, and Mrs. Markling and I will deal with all kids when it comes to testing, and he comes in very stoic. And the goal was to try to make him laugh. And the only reason we were trying to make him laugh because we want to try to get to know him better. And it's so nice to have this opportunity because I don't see them. You know, he's in a classroom, but I get to interact with kids when it comes to testing or when I call, et cetera. And for Talon, starting his sophomore year, as he's continued online, he was a concurrent student for a bit. Now he's full-time online. And something I just shared with him, you know, we make our choices, and some places are better for him. He's doing wonderful online. He's a 3.0 student in a full year of online classes. And I know that when I watch and see the successes he has, I hope that that continues for him in the future. So congratulations, buddy. Stay here. Presley Liggett, come on up here, hon. So Presley, you started in 5th grade online, right? 6th grade? 4th grade? So when we were in COVID, she was online. So when we started, she started. So 4th, 5th, 6th, and now in 7th grade. I got to know her because we went from just looking at a picture on a camera to our Fun Fridays at Power Ranch. And to now we have our meetings every Thursday where we get to have conversations. Now, Presley, why I chose Presley is when you think of an online student, you just think about a student who, you know, they're at home and they don't do very much. Every single event we've had, whether it be helping at Power Ranch, going to a cancer network thing, she's been at. She engages with her classmates. Did Riley come over to your house today? Okay. I know they do other things outside of it. I think that online for her has just been wonderful. And it's great to see her grow. And I'm very glad that I can be part of that. So congratulations. Before you leave, who's here with you?
My dad. Who? My dad.
Mr. Pugnetti, why don't you come on up here? I'm going to let Mrs. Bird talk about you. But before I do that, I know that you like trivia nights. And I tried, and I didn't get something that I was supposed to get for you, but I think what is in here you'll like.
My name is Tommy Bird. I'm the director of the Higley Learning Center program. kind of a little bubble where we live. Not a huge program, but I think we make a huge difference. And Angelo Pagnetti is one of the major reasons for that. Almost every kid who comes to us comes in with a frown. They're not happy about being there because we're there to make sure that they work, to make sure they graduate when they're credit deficient. But every single time, kids leave with a huge smile on their face, and some of them even tears in their eyes. And for some reason, they want hugs from us when they leave. But Angelo is a big part of that. And the reason that I nominated him for this award is because of his professional growth and his outstanding work in HLC over the past few years. He's first and foremost one of the most self-reflective people I've ever worked with. He's receptive to feedback. He's tuned into what's working, what's not. He's quick to make adjustments as needed. Over the past 3 years, I've seen him work very purposefully on his communication skills, his classroom management style, which is a huge part of what we do, his academic content knowledge, and his understanding of teenage psychology. His efforts and commitment to professional improvement are truly commendable. The increased efficiency of HLC operations and the academic achievements of our students is due in large part to Angelo's commitment to excellence. He truly cares about his students' success, not only in HLC, but in their lives after high school. And he is a tenacious advocate for the HLC program. Additionally, his willingness to collaborate and gracefully accept change, as well as his ability to successfully affect change, has helped transform the HLC learning program. Our team benefits from Angelo's gifts and skills on a daily basis, and HUSD is lucky to have someone like him in our corner. So thank you very much for everything you do for us.
Who's here with you?
I got my wife McKenna back there, and I know my parents are watching online. Hi, Mom and Dad.
That's for you, bud. Thanks a lot, man. Okay, last but definitely not least, Mrs. Melody Griffin, why don't you come on up here? So I go back a little ways with this person because we used to work together at Sossaman. When we began our online program, I guess I get blessed that there's some people that I know that will want to continue to work with me, and she did. And the best part about Melody and why I chose Melody here is one of the things that we really need is flexibility with our teachers. We talk about the importance of feedback and communication. And when you look at what Melody writes to kids, remember, they don't get to see her. So they're doing work, and they have to trust that whatever she's going to share with them is going to make them better. So the next time that when they turn something in, it's just looks better and they get a better grade on it. And her feedback to those kids is amazing. Her communication is amazing. And also her flexibility. Hey, John, I'll teach that. Hey, John, I'll teach that. She's now teaching 10th grade and art. 10th grade on a regular 10th grade honors art. Last year was 9th grade. Did you do 7th and 8th too as well? Visual arts. So just so willing and flexible to do so many things. I just so appreciate you. So thank you. Who's here with you?
I brought my husband Chip with me.
You guys want to get a picture?
Thank you, everyone, and congratulations to those that were recognized tonight. Thank you for the administrators and teachers and all staff that showed up to support the students and staff and volunteers and the teams that were phenomenal and really making Higley proud. Next on the agenda is our upcoming events. I always skip it. Ms. Richards, what do we have?
All right. Our next events include tomorrow night, our Parent Night Social Media Awareness here in the boardroom at 6 p.m. You're all invited to attend. We also have our business partner breakfast next Tuesday here in the boardroom at 7:30 in the morning. Very exciting event that we love so very much. Best Buddies Carnival at Higley High School at 9:30 on March 1st. And I know Miss Miller and her team have been working hard to prepare for this. And it's always like, you leave and you feel better, always. All right, March 5th, Tuesday, we have another Citizens Committee meeting here in the boardroom at 5. And our last one was last night, and we appreciate our committee members so much for their time and dedication. And last, our next board meeting will be Wednesday, March 6th, here in the boardroom at 5 p.m. And that concludes upcoming events.
Thank you, Ms. Richards and Ms. Reese. All right, next is our request to speak, our public comments. We value input from our constituents. This time on our agenda has been set aside for anyone from the audience who wishes to address the board. Those that wish to speak should have filled out speaker cards, which are due prior to the start of our meeting. Members of the board may not discuss, comment, or take action on matters raised that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01I, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism, or scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date. Also, we ask that the audience members practice proper public meeting decorum, refraining from either negative or positive responses, including clapping or verbal outbursts, to ensure fairness to all points of view. Those that refuse to follow these rules may be asked to leave. In accordance with policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings, if considered necessary, the governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period. In order to ensure that each individual has an opportunity to address the board, the president may also set a time limit for individual speakers. Thank you for your cooperation. First, we're going to hear from Heather Balsh.
I wish to speak to you about 2 items on the agenda. The first is to increase compensation for staff. As you are all aware, I sit on the executive board for the Higley Education Association and as a member of Meet and Confer. Higley Education Association is considered to be a wall-to-wall union, which means we represent both certified and classified employees. It is very important that as a district, we recognize how valuable our classified staff are. The schools in our districts would not function without them, and our special education department would be devastated. That is why we support the second compensation proposal that would decrease the certified M&O percentage and increase the classified percentage. I thank you for taking this into consideration during your future vote. The second topic I would like to discuss is about special education programs in HUSD. I have been a speech-language pathologist with Higley since 2002. Over time, technology that has become available for our students has really advanced. When starting with alternative methods of communication, we focus on low tech, such as objects, photographs of objects, and pictures. Then we move to simple speech output devices, which are recordable and use printed picture overlays. At the start of this year, one of my students was using a 16-button, simple recordable device. This means the device offered 16 vocabulary words per printed page. This is a limited vocabulary. And I could tell he was ready for something more advanced. The ADA Loan Library has a high-tech digital device that I could borrow. We put that in place and saw our student blossom. He went from a restricted vocabulary of 16 words to an expansive vocabulary of 60 buttons per page that link to multiple pages. He now participates during large group, greets his peers and teachers by name, makes requests, and comments on lessons during his class. This has opened the world of spoken communication for our students. His classmates are curious about his device, but patient and kind as he navigates the pages to say what he wants to say. Through a collaborative effort, we have been able to work with my students' parents and insurance, and the student now has his own personal device. His voice can go everywhere with him. I feel confident that this will help him as he transitions into kindergarten next year. In education, it is imperative that we teach kindness, we teach inclusion, and we teach empathy.
Thank you. Next, we will be hearing from Mindy Brocker.
Hi, thank you. Recently, I had an interaction online, and it summed up what I believe is our failure as a community. See, the rumor has it that our town council was having difficulty communicating and working together. So they hired an expert to come in and work with the team to build new skills so work could get done. The person who was bothered by this demanded that they should know. They're adults, just figure it out. The fact is, knowing what must be done is easy. The knowing how to do it is difficult. When our district was interviewing the new superintendents, one of them said something to the equivalent of, children don't know how to learn because COVID. Well, I think it's time that we admit that this isn't COVID. This isn't the 90 days that this community locked down or the 180 days that our children wore a mask to school. The problem is us. COVID has shown us the truth. The deep down of it, we adults struggle to get along. It's not new. We are who we are, and we are deeply fractured. Here's the thing, though. We don't have to be. Not when we're talking about caring for our kids. One thing I truly believe is that we can make an effort to get along, because underneath all of these disagreements, we love our children. We want them to succeed, to be happy, to grow into this world being great citizens, great community members, and great leaders. In the same way that I cannot win a football game because I watched the Super Bowl, we cannot expect our children to be the best students, leaders, and community members because they've watched the community around them. Our HUSD students we celebrated this evening didn't become champions only because they knew the mechanics of their sport or subject. It was a whole support team that makes it possible. Great coaches, dedicated educators, boosters, volunteers, community support, and lots and lots and lots of practice. In the same way we invest our time and resources into these amazing sports and science teams, we should be investing in our schools overall to build better community members. This requires resources and compromise, and yes, the dreaded social emotional learning. Because my fellow community members, we are failing. Our children are suffering because of it. Children are being bullied and beaten in our streets and didn't feel safe enough to tell us. Why would they? When they told us, we did nothing. Our teachers are suffering. They're losing hope. We are losing them. Unmanageable classrooms, scandalously low pay, scant resources, and an openly hostile community who will call them the bad guys instead of looking inward. Fellow parents, shame on us. We allow this political showmanship and this division to continue, blaming everyone else but ourselves, and we must be better. We must demand that this political showmanship and conspiracy sharing cease. We must demand that classroom support increase. We must demand that our educators and children train for social emotional concepts. We must give of our time and help where we can. We must become involved with our children's district. We must open our pockets and give this district the resources to educate our children. Our kids need us to be a better community, and I think together we can do that.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Ann.
Good evening, Higley Board. I'm going to start sounding like a broken record. You're going to start seeing me on a weekly basis, especially when I can pull it off. It's really hard for me to get to these meetings. You can see by the empty seats here that most parents, especially the working parents, making a 5 p.m. meeting to have our voices heard is nearly impossible. The only reason I'm able to get here tonight is my husband is between gigs, allowing him to watch our children and pick them up so I could get through meetings at work. I'm an elementary teacher at, I won't say where, but between being a parent and a teacher and a community member who wants to be more involved in the programs that create the culture of our city, I really think we need to move the meetings to 6 p.m. I beg you, I implore you, most people in this community would like to see a 6 p.m. meeting. That is how they're able to get to city council meetings. That's how they're able to navigate work and being more active in their community. So I'm sitting here and I'm imploring you all to vote to have this meeting moved to a 6 p.m. on a regular basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Timothy or Tim Shaw.
Good evening. I'd like to talk about the 6.4 approval first. Let's move the meetings to 6 p.m. As a professional, my day goes until 5, well into that. There's no way in the world I make it here on time, except I'm going back to work for the government. If you hear the cynicism in my voice there. 6 and 14, approval of sole source procurement determination. This is more for Taylor. What came up in the last meeting was we had a contract delivered to our community. This contract's ordered millions, and that's the stands out there in the wrong direction, something that the maintenance guy talked to me about, which is fine, it happens. The problem with that, though, is if we do not have a means of correcting it, it goes on to people like myself, homeowners. Said, I don't want to have to pay for something 3 times. I already work for the government. There is at least one engineer who had to sign off on it, or an engineering company. That engineering company needs to have errors and omissions insurance on it. Where we should be going after is errors and omissions, not my home. The other thing is what we need to have is really easy wins. These are 2 easy wins for you. Is some form of technology. I hear it all the time, the complaints about the technology, incorporating the technology into the classroom. It is because of technology in the classroom that I became an engineer. Now, I'm not really great at academics. My language skills are not nearly as robust as everybody else's here. However, I could build a machine, and I've put machines in. I've worked for NASA several times. I could be considered a rocket scientist, wrote papers on it. The technology and skill set required to be effective in that is not going to come onto a blinking LED. Your average, without getting too technical, the average life of an LED is only about 3 years. Thomas Edison's lights, well over 100 years. So if we're going to have energy efficiency, and if we're going for that in order to benefit our people and our community, we have to go where the problems actually are, which is another point on that's priorities of where the funds are going. It's one of the things that was brought up to Taylor yesterday. We didn't have time to chat about it yesterday. But if we know where to concentrate our activities and our efforts, we can deliver results. If it's because of emotion, because somebody wants something else because their uncle or cousin in it, it's fine, whatever. We're always going to have a little bit of corruption. But if we know where to focus it, we can solve the problems then. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, I motion to approve the consent agenda items 6.1 through 6.18. And I got it, sorry. No, just okay. No, just letting you know. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. And with that passing, Heidi would like to come up and introduce and speak on our new assistant principal at the Bridges, Elizabeth Melter.
Yes, thank you, President Anderson and members of the board. We're super excited that you just passed approval for the hiring of Ms. Melter, our new assistant principal at Bridges Elementary. I just want to share a few highlights about Ms. Melter for you and for everyone here. Ms. Melter brings 17 years of experience to the Bridges admin team. Prior to joining Bridges in 2017, she already was an elementary school principal, so she brings admin experience with her. She's spent the last 7 years at Bridges teaching both 3rd and 5th grade, and she was named as the Teacher of the Year in 2017 at Bridges. She's been an active participant in the Higley Leadership Academy for 3 years, and she served as one of our summer school administrators just this past year. So we're really ecstatic. I know the staff is at Bridges Elementary. Mr. Bickle is also here with her tonight, and we just want to wish her well and congratulations.
Thank you, Heidi, and congratulations. Okay, next on the agenda is the Special Education Private Day School Report with Mrs. Miller.
President Anderson, members of the board, this is the second quarter Special Education Private Day School Report. We bring these to you quarterly, and as you can see, based on the expenditures that we have allocated at the end of second quarter, we feel that we're going to be able to stay within the budget. We're cutting it a little closer this year than we have, and I hope I don't have to come back, and we're watching those funds closely and making sure that while doing so, we're meeting the needs of our kids. So, any questions?
Wonderful, thank you, Ms. Miller. All right, next is an update from the, sorry, my eyes. Next is an update from the Special Education Department, again, on the program update from the Special Education Department, Mrs. Miller.
All right, President Anderson, members of the board, I am really excited today to be able to come to you and just give you a little bit of an overview of our special education department and some of the neat things that our programs are doing. I look forward to this every year because it's not very often that I get to brag about my team and my campuses, and we're doing some really, really neat things. So I wanted to begin by giving you a quick rundown of our structure. Of course, there's me, but I could not do my job without my team. They really do carry most of the weight for me and are incredible people. I have Assistant Director Kristen Nash. She has been in the district for quite some time and services all of our campus, and she is definitely a staple to my program. In addition, this year, Mr. Stephen Reed filled a new position that we added. As we went through last year, we started to see an increasing need for behavior support on our campuses. Our teachers were screaming for help. They needed professional development in that area, and we really were struggling to be able to support our teachers, our students, and our families. So we decided to allocate some of our resources to add a behavior and program coordinator. Stefan is able to work directly with Debbie Welch and Dina Morgan in their department, and we're able to support campuses not only with special education students, but also with some of our general education students that are struggling. We have found that this has been a huge help. He is an amazing individual and has an extensive knowledge in the area of behavior, and is been able to fill one of the greatest needs that we identified last year. So he's been a great addition to our program. In addition to Stefan, we also have 2 special education instructional specialists. Both of these ladies were previous teachers in our district in our special education program. Ms. Harrison came from Cooley Middle School, and Rachel Kupek came from Bridges Elementary. And we know that both of those schools were really disappointed to lose them because both of them served as leaders in their programs, but they have been a huge addition to our team. Some of the things that our special education instructional specialists do is they provide site compliance and monitoring training. Unfortunately, while our special education teachers' primary focus is students, they also have to be concerned about state compliance in their IEPs, and that takes a lot of training. And so they're able to provide that training. They also provide general site support. They've done a phenomenal job this year in developing PD for our paraprofessionals, which was an area that we were really struggling with, to provide them meaningful PD so that they were able to be more effective in our classrooms, and they've done a great job at that. IEP Pro is our platform where we write IEPs in, and it takes a little training and practice to get used to that. So they support all of our new teachers in the IEP Pro program, as well as just in being new to teaching and in special education. And then they also help support our first year teacher training at the beginning of the school year. As of this week, our instructional specialists have completed over 30 group trainings this year. So that's pretty significant, and which has affected more than 200 staff members. So it's been really impressive. This does not include the individual support that they offer parents, students, administrators, teachers, and staff. So this is above and beyond. And these positions play an integral role in our PD development and the support of our staff. So we're really excited that they're part of our team as well. Moving on to give you a little bit of an overview, in special education, we service students in all areas of these disabilities. These disabilities can vary from state to state, these categories. So in Arizona, these are what the state recognizes as eligibility categories that a student can receive services for. And I can say that we have students in our district that fall into every single one of those categories. In order to service these kids, we need to offer a continuum of service, and we do that in Higley. We are really proud of the offerings and the support opportunities that we have for students, and it's taken us a while to fine-tune these things because of the amount of time and effort that goes into supporting all of these programs. General education inclusion is the first. These are students that are able to remain in their general education classroom with their peers, but need that additional support in that classroom. That support is typically provided through a co-teacher, which means you have a gen ed teacher and a special education teacher in that classroom, or through a paraprofessional to offer support in that classroom based on what the IEP team decided. The next level of support would be resource support, and that is a pull-out support. But it's important to note that in the resource classroom, we use grade level curriculum, and we cover the same thing that they do in that gen ed classroom. We just make sure to individualize it to the individual student needs. The next level of support is your cross-categorical classroom. This classroom is designed for students with significant cognitive disabilities that are typically functioning below grade level, and they oftentimes require additional resources and supports to help them learn in their unique manner and to address their unique IEP goals. Because of the specialty nature of this program, we do not offer this program on every campus. So at the elementary level, we have 2 campuses on the south side and 2 on the north side. Centennial and Cortina serve on our south side, and Chaparral and Coronado serve on our north side. Once they feed into the middle school and high school, we're able to do the cross-categorical program on all those campuses. So both of our middle schools and both of our high schools are able to keep those students with their home schools and service those kids on their home campuses. The next level of support is our emotionally disabled program, and we call that BEST. That's our in-house private day program. So our EDP programs, these programs are utilized when students require an increased level of support that we can't offer in the public school setting. We try our hardest to try all of our other levels before we reach that point, but we do have a group of students that do require that additional support. The next group is our related services. So we have OT, speech, physical therapy, occupational therapy is the OT, visually impaired support, and our hearing impaired support. And I want to give a really kind of a shout out to that group of people. That group of people has to travel. So we don't have an OT and a PT and a VI teacher and an HI teacher on every campus. And while we have speech support on every campus, they're carrying caseloads in the 70s sometimes. So while they service one campus, many of our speech and language therapists and assistants actually do travel between campuses from day to day. And that can be a little bit overwhelming, and they're amazing. So we are really grateful that they are so dedicated to kids, and they don't mind that, and that they're willing to put in the dedication to service all 13 schools and do that. Our visually impaired teacher and our hearing impaired teacher, and you saw one of them here tonight, very few districts in the East Valley actually have hired in-house hearing impaired teachers and visually impaired teachers, and we do. And so that's a huge blessing. We have people reach out all the time and say, how did you find them? And we were lucky enough to get them, and they're very happy here, and we're very grateful for them. All right, next, I wanted to give you a quick synopsis of our student count. As you can see, we followed the same trend that the state did when COVID hit. So in 2019-20, we were at 1926 special education students in the district, and we saw that dip occur. And then we are now on the upward motion. We're right now at 1787. These are October 1st counts, so that way we're comparing the same date every year. But this morning, I did a quick poll just to see where we're at, and as of this morning, we're actually at 1804. So that shows you from October 1st to now, just it continues to rise, and we will anticipate that it will continue to do so. Elementary numbers are affecting this, which we know we've seen a dip in those numbers. That's usually our, when we identify kids is in elementary school, so that's also affecting those numbers. But 1787 and 18, that's quite a few students that we're servicing. Our staffing, just to kind of give you an overview, we have 14 school psychologists and 2 psychologist interns, 17 speech and language professionals, 4 occupational therapists, 2 physical therapists. We have a teacher of the visually impaired and a brailleist, which is another in-house position we were able to hire, which is very hard to find in the state of Arizona, and we were able to do so. We have a teacher of the hearing impaired, 116 special education teachers, and 170 special education paraprofessionals and behavioral health technicians. So lots of people here to support students. Now to kind of go on to some of our specialty programs. The first one I want to talk about is our post-secondary transition program, otherwise known as HTAP. This was started in 2018 and was an endeavor between HUSD and Voc Rehab. And we kind of took a leap of faith, hoping that we had the right person for this position with Brittany Wittenberg, now Mrs. Yanov. And she has been the main driver in the development of this program. And if you haven't attended the HTAP graduation ceremony, it is absolutely amazing. And what a really great opportunity. It is a feel-good moment, kind of like the Best Buddies Carnival. Students in this program are instructed in classroom setting as well as they perform job duties and skills out in the environment. They currently this year are working with Amy's Farm, Cooley Preschool, the Rain Cat Rescue, Sunshine Acres Children's Home, HUSD Unified Sports Program, Midwest Food Bank, United Food Bank, Legacy Park, the Perry Library, and HTA and Gateway Point Elementary. So they have a schedule, they go to these jobs and perform duties, so it's been really neat. This program has gained in popularity, and we're having a huge demand for it, and so right now my department is looking at ways to expand this program in a cost-effective manner to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the kids. So super proud of that program and the work that the staff have put into making it successful. The next program that we like to talk about is our Best Buddies clubs throughout the district. This is a club that focuses on integration and inclusion on our campuses and really changes the climate and culture of our campuses. We have won numerous awards, and so our most recent awards are our Excellence in Employment Award in 2013 was won by Jacob by Boeing Aerospace, and he actually works for Boeing now and went through their wiring program, and so it was a huge accomplishment for him. The other award that they've won is they won the Best Buddies International Outstanding Chapter for the 2022-23 school year, and this is out of over 300 chapters worldwide. So a really neat accomplishment by our Best Buddies program. In addition, I wanted to go further. So these are all the awards that we've won over the years in our Best Buddies program. So just wanted, the amount of dedication and support that staff have to put into running this club is amazing. Right now, we have over 300 kids participating in Best Buddies clubs across the district. So that's a huge impact on our campuses that have these programs. The next program is our Unified Sports Program. So the Unified Sports Program is an opportunity for some of our special education students to be able to participate in football, basketball, cheerleading, soccer, and track with surrounding districts. And they also earn the opportunity to go to state. And this program was developed, and it has been developed to provide opportunities for our athletes to be, or for our students to be athletes, and then also for the peer buddies to be able to develop those relationships. We have seen so much good come out of this program, not just for the students, but for the families. So if you ever have the opportunity to go to one of these games and watch, you will not be disappointed. Absolutely amazing. Again, I just wanted to share that the staff in Higley are dedicated to their students. It's absolutely amazing to see. I get the opportunity to sit with the East Valley directors once a month and kind of talk about some of the things that we need to do in the East Valley for special ed, and we're at the top. We're constantly ahead of the game and doing things. We're constantly being asked how we're able to accomplish some of the things we accomplish, and the answer to that is the staff and the families and the students that support us. So thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. I love that we have so many different opportunities for special ed students. It's great. I just have one question. How many visually impaired students do we have?
Oh, I would not have that answer off the top of my head. Our visually impaired students, we have students that have full visual impairment, and then we have other students that are just are partially visually impaired, but I can get those numbers for you.
Thank you.
I don't have a question or anything, just thank you for everything that you do. It's such a great program, and even, the IEP programs, then I personally know how much they help and how amazing they are, so thank you and your team, and I'm looking forward to the Best Buddies Carnival as well.
Thank you. Ms. Miller and staff, remarkable. It's one thing to have the opportunities and programs and speak about it, but it's another to show the growth that your program has done and really made changes. And I know people that do attend the game, even students that attend the Best Buddies games, and they're excited. And I thank you. Thank you for including not just the students and the families that are in the program, but those outside the program. Okay. Information item 7.3, Human Resources Quarterly ESI Report. Mrs. Johnston, what do you have for us today?
I don't think so. Thank you. President Anderson, members of the board, before you have the second quarter report on ESI, which stands for Educational Services, Inc. This service provides our substitutes, both certified and classified, as well as our retire to rehire employees that have retired and now are working through ESI. Do you have any questions this evening for me?
Oh, short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. 7.4, we are going to now hear about the maintenance and operations budget with Mr. Moore.
Yes, good evening, President Anderson, members of the board. Tonight I'm presenting the second review of the fiscal year 2025 maintenance and operations budget. So again, just to recap the Arizona budget timeline, this budget is working towards the June legal timeline in which we legally propose and adopt the 25 budget. But as you know, in Arizona, it's been a practice. It seems like every year it gets earlier and earlier to get contracts out sooner. And so we bring forth the budget projections early, so we have the opportunity to issue contracts with our neighboring school districts and secure our staffing for next fiscal year. As you know, staffing is 80% of our budget, and so the earlier we can secure those positions, the better we can prepare for next school year. We'll look at also this year's revised budget. Our FY24 current year budget, it requires revision to the 100th-day number before May. And so we're also going to be looking at that number as well and how it plays into the FY25 budget conversation. So the FY25 projected budget highlights, not a lot changed from the first presentation. Again, legislative conversations are ongoing right now. The bills that have been proposed have now been first reviewed, so if it hasn't been read on the Senate or House floor, it is now off the table. However, there has been a lot of bills that have been reviewed at both floors, and so those are proceeding forward in the process. We'll continue to monitor those conversations. One of the big ones that are impacting public schools that we're keeping our eye on is the aggregate expenditure limit, or AEL. As you know, that has been exempted the last 2 years. I've stated in the first review of the budget that we feel confident that that will also be exempted going into this next year's budget cycle. But again, that legislation has not officially been adopted or passed. And so we'll continue to monitor that, but I do feel confident that some legislation exempting that into 25, probably be another one-year exemption, although there's several bills that kind of propose a long-term solution for that, which would be ideal. But I feel at least a one-year exemption to that aggregate expenditure limit will be in the Arizona State budget when it is approved. So the second bullet point there, we have heard in my circles some rumblings about how the state is going to make up the $800 million state deficit. And so there's some conversation regarding where do you take that money from, right? There's no new money coming to the table, so how are you going to make up that deficit going into next year? One avenue of potential that we've heard is the School Facilities Division. That is an entity of the state. The School Facilities Division provides capital funding for school districts via an application process to submit up for capital repairs, such as weatherization. We have been successful in receiving some of that funding, but the state is minimally adequate or minimally apportioned to provide $16 million to the School Facilities Division. Over the last several years, they've provided in excess of $160, $170 million. So all that additional money has been appropriated through the budget process. So one area, again, we have heard conversations of is not appropriating that extra dollars to the state school facilities board, only appropriating the $16 million that is outlined in statute. That would be unfortunate because that limits now the district as another capital funding source where we can go and submit for application for funding some of our capital needs. So not in writing yet, but we've heard some of those conversations take place. So moving to the kind of known implications, we're estimating the 2% inflation adjustment to the K-12 base support level. I've explained this in the past, but essentially districts are on essentially a fixed income. That is a state formula based on the state legislature. In that formula, there is some language that basically appropriates the legislature the flexibility to provide an inflation increase. That language states that the state has to minimally fund at least 2% if the gross GDP price is above that. So we're seeing the GDP about 3.5%, so we anticipate the state funding that minimum 2% requirement to the base level support. So that's the per pupil amount. So that is taken into consideration into this budget conversation. The second bullet point there, we know this is the last year of our fully funded M&O override, speaking of 25, unless it's renewed in the November 2024 election. And so, as you know, the board authorized the district to run a citizens committee process to bring forth a recommendation. We have now successfully had 3 meetings. We have 2 more scheduled before a recommendation is going to be brought to the board. And so, again, we'll continue with those meetings and look forward to the recommendation at the April 3rd board meeting. The last item there is the budget transfer. The district has historically looked and utilized the ability to transfer M&O dollars to capital. This year, we are proposing, and what is being projected in the budget is transferring $3.55 million to fund the middle school lease payment that needs to be annually paid from the capital fund. I've highlighted there a second bullet point considering additional M&O transfers. If there is contingency into the budget, we would not look at increasing the carryover that we currently have in the M&O budget. So we are currently, as I get into that, we're currently carrying over $22 million. we would look at appropriating anything above that to the capital budget. So we're not increasing that M&O carry forward amount. More to come on that. Diving into the FY24 projected revision number 1. So this is our current year budget. That first line there, the 124 million, is what we adopted in June 2023. Projecting into our required revision, as I've mentioned, we've seen some declining enrollment, but mostly in the elementary level. So we do have that 100-day actual number, that's 183.1744. That's average daily membership. That's the number that we have hit as of the 100th day. And so that is what the projected revision is showing in the second line there, the 125 million. With all else held steady, with the exception of putting in the actual budget balance carry forward that we brought forth into this current year budget, you'll see a projected budget revision amount of 288,000. So we take that amount into next year's budget projections. Again, at the top, this is our projected budget revision for the current year. We look at the FY25 projected proposed budget. As I stated to the board, we have now seen a couple years of enrollment decline. We have historically budgeted flat. We have now proactively slotted in a 70-student ADM decrease into the budget projections to be proactive in the sense that we continue the trend of declining enrollment. So the 25 budget also includes the estimated 2% to inflation to the base level support. One of the areas where you'll see, how is the budget staying where it's at is because we're decreasing the amount of money that we're transferring from M&O to capital. So when you don't bring as much money over to capital, you're going to leave that money into the M&O budget. That makes up for a lot of the deficits that we've seen and able to support that M&O budget on an ongoing basis. With that, you take the numbers and we kind of look at a projected proposed budget increase of $918,000. So looking at our budget process, we have started to fill in some of the numbers that were previously unknown. Looking into next year and estimating some of our budget needs in terms of the fixed costs. Property casualty insurance, that's something we have to pay annually. We're not immune to what is going on in the insurance world. We have seen our fair share of claims with our property. And so we're seeing a slight increase of about 5% to property insurance. In addition, I've mentioned before, our prepaid legals paid through property casualty. We have seen an increased usage in prepaid legal usage, so that is also factored into that $80,000 in projected increases. Utility increases, I've mentioned before, like the town of Gilbert we're going on year 2, FY25 will be year 2 of their increases, so we're going to see $400,000 in increases in water. This is part of their aggressive schedule to correct some of the projected deficiencies that they're seeing on their side. The other $100,000 is increases in SRP and Southwest Gas. So our other utilities are also seeing similar, not as high as water, but similar increases. And so that's what represents the $500,000 in projected utility increases. Next, annually we review cabinet as well as HR, and both Heidi and David, we review our staffing. When we looked at both elementary and high school, as I've stated, we've seen decline in elementary. And so to balance some of the elementary class sizes and sections, we have reduced 5 sections. I will note that all of those have been satisfied with either attrition, employees either choosing to leave the district or retire. There has been no conversations of riffing or putting people on leave. And so that is good news. It just natural attrition has satisfied already the reduction of 5 elementary sections. On the flip side, we're seeing an increase in secondary. And so while it's a different staffing model, we do have a formula that we use to justify high school FTE. we're seeing an increase. Based on that formula, we will be increasing 1 FTE at Higley High and 3 at Williamsfield. Williamsfield saw some significant growth this year. Higley High also saw some growth, but is now leveling off. And so based on that formula, we'll be increasing 4 FTE total to the secondary level. The third bullet point there, this is a conversation going around the state and how districts are addressing positions they may have obligated to the ESSER funds. We have been open and transparent about the 4 positions that we have budgeted in there. We have stated that we'll bring these back into the M&O budget when that time comes. And that time is coming. Next year, we will bring in the Assistant Director of Counseling and the 3 elementary counselors that we obligated to the ESSER 3 grant that now expires at the end of this school year. And so that is included into that amount. In addition, we have worked with Shauna Miller and looked at, as well as Ms. Karen Johnson, regarding some of our annual needs in terms of where we see attrition, where we see challenging issues within our staffing. And one of those has been with the paraprofessionals. Both our 1 and 2 paraprofessionals, we're having difficulty staffing those positions. We have been contracting out those positions at 2, sometimes 3 times the cost of what it would cost the district to hire them internally. So one of the recommendations is to reclass the Para 1 and the Para 2 grades. Currently, they sit at, a Para 1 sits at grade 105, and a Para 2 sits at grade 105A. The recommendation would be to bring up the Para 1 to 107, which would be starting at $16.62 an hour, and the Para 2 to grade 110, which would be $18.29 an hour. We feel like this reclassification would make us more competitive with our neighboring districts. It'll help us retain the current employees that are in those positions, and hopefully move some of those contracted positions back in-house and save us some money. The last item there is kind of supporting also the paraprofessionals, but also all our other 12-month, 11-month, and 10-month classified hourly and administrators. Some of the conversations around meet and confer over the last 2 years about how do we support these individuals when we can't do it monetarily, right? What other avenues do we have to provide an attractive workforce, or like an attractive district, an attractive basically job where we can keep these individuals employed and satisfied. And so one of those areas is adding additional days, specifically 3 days over the winter break. So currently certified staff have off. Admin, classified hourly, those are working days with the exception of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And so the recommendation would be to add 3 days between the day after Christmas, so the 26th, 27th, 28th, and then you already have the 29th, or excuse me, 3 days between Christmas Day and New Year's Eve. The way it falls typically on the schedule, there's either a weekend in there, and so it would provide almost 7 days of leave over winter break. Several of our surrounding districts have all 2 weeks off for their classified staff. Some of that is competition that we're facing. But in addition, we do have other holidays that we pay that are different. And so we settled on 3 days being basically a recommendation that we felt would be competitive with neighboring districts and provide that additional benefit to those employees. So all that, in addition to some other smaller changes, including adding a teacher at the Higley Virtual Academy. We just heard from Mr. Dolan tonight. He's seeing increasing class sizes and demand on his programs. They're a department of 2. And so adding an additional teacher there to help support the load of the number of classes that are being added to that program kind of sums up and rounds out that addition, reduction, reclassification budget line. As we look into compensation, we have 2 options that we have discussed, and I apologize. The meet and confer meeting was Thursday. That was prior to me getting the board the first draft of this budget presentation. So if you didn't get a chance to review the updated version, that's what I'm reviewing now. So the FY25 salary compensation option number 1 includes an M&O percentage increase of 2%. As I stated earlier in the presentation, the legislature, we anticipate making an inflation adjustment of 2%, and we would look at offsetting that directly to our employees. This is a practice we did last year, with the exception of classified, where we made a larger recommended increase. And so that was considered into option number 1. You can see the totals down there for each employee category on the M&O column. Something that's different this year is looking at the second column, the classroom site fund. We have historically approved this or talked about this later in the year when we brought forth the classroom site fund plan, but we felt it was important to include that in this conversation because it plays an important role in the option number 2. But every year, the classroom site fund bucket was considered Prop 301. This was a separate bucket approved by the legislature that's based on a 6/10 sales tax. And so that bucket can only be used, as noted in the bottom, for teacher compensation, includes performance pay, teacher development, and other classroom supported services. So your OT, PTs, your instructional coaches are all eligible to receive this fund, and they are included in Higley's classroom site fund plan. Annually, we review this bucket and make recommendations to either increase or decrease, as this bucket is subjective to sales tax, not our formula. So we have this whole nother bucket where we monitor and make adjustments according to how sales tax is trending year after year. And so over the last couple of years, this has ballooned. We have seen an increase in the per pupil amount that we're receiving in this bucket. And so we're proposing making a recommendation of a one-time, basically, increase to put some of this money back into the teacher's pocket. It's not the goal of this fund to continue to roll over, but we know that in Meet and Confer, we talk about this. We know this is subjective to sales tax, right? And that can fluctuate given any bad year during a recession or during times that we're experiencing right now. And so we look at sustainability with that. I run out a 5-year plan to make sure that is sustainable. And so that has been included in that dollar amount. So what that $1.4 million represents, the reason why it says 2 to 3%, it's a flat dollar amount increase to the plan of $1,750. So when you take that on a new teacher base salary, that's going to be closer to a 3%. A more experienced teacher, that's going to be closer to a 2%. And so that's why you see a range on that. But that $1.4 million represents a flat dollar increase to that bucket that teachers get paid. And so I hope that explains that, because it leads into the second option, which Meet and Confer is the ultimate. This is the recommendation of Meet and Confer, and based on the conversations of how Higley has operated over the last several years, we have honored all employees. And so I actually brought forth the first recommendation. Meet and Confer came up with this recommendation, which, if you see, kind of reduces the obligation to M&O just because the teachers are already getting that 2 or 3% from the classroom, their own bucket. This averages out their total increase to 3.5 to 4.5%. So they'll be still getting the bulk of the highest percentage increase out of the district. But what it does is allows for another percentage increase on our other staff that are not eligible for that bucket of funds. And so that it basically allows for another percentage increase into those other groups: classified, administration, classified exempt, and our supplemental schedule, which includes all our coaches, our leadership department leads, et cetera. And so those are our 2 compensation options. I'm happy to take questions on those. Just looking forward to the budget calendar conversation, We'll be bringing forth a recommendation and asking for tentative approval so we can issue contracts. At that time, we would like the board to take action on one of the 2 recommended compensation increases at March 6th, so we can include that in the compensation language. Being ahead of that early, again, helps us post those salary schedules. It helps us attract and fill those positions that may now be vacant. And I hate to say, but it's just now the norm in Arizona is how early can you post those positions, post your salary schedule, so you can be that district that is either leading that charge or having that most attractive salary schedule to attract those highly qualified teachers. So moving forward, April 3rd, as I mentioned, the Citizens Committee recommendation, and then we'll look at tentative approval of the capital budget. But I know I'm on the next agenda item, capital, so I'm gonna skip that to allow for any questions on M&O.
Are there any questions or comments? I just real quick, I don't have a question per se, but I do glance over at Dr. Carmen to see, coming from Texas and hearing how Arizona, how the numbers work, and just kind of reading his face to see if he's like doing this or if he's smiling. But if you wouldn't mind to clarify for our viewers and our board members, to remind them that teachers going to the slides for compensation options, that under the employee categories where it says teachers and other certified staff, can you remind us who the other certified staff is, please?
I kind of alluded to that, Mr. President Anderson, members of the board. I kind of alluded to that briefly, but it's our instructional coaches, it's our OT, our PTs, our speech. It's really those individuals that also may not provide direct instruction, but support the instruction. And there's about, take me off the top of my head, but there's about 60 to 70 individuals in that group that provide that direct support to the instruction that's going on in the classroom.
President Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Moore, thank you for presenting this, and I want to kind of put a shout out to our meet and confer for them to look at a proposal and say, thank you, but we know we're getting funding from this source. We would like to make sure that the whole district is fairly compensated, and so I think that's very different. I don't think that happens in most districts, that they are looking out for all areas and of employees, and that goes with our strategic plan. Unfortunately, I will not be here at our next meeting for the vote on this, and I really support that option too, and I appreciate that our own employees came back and gave us a different option that they felt was more equitable across the board. So that definitely makes me feel very proud to be serving in our district, because I don't think that happens everywhere.
President Anderson, Mr. Moore, who was involved in the meet and confer?
Yeah, so President Anderson, Ms. Van Hook, meet and confer consists of 6 district administration personnel as well as 6 teacher representatives. That includes the HEA president as well as vice president and secretary, and then 3 at-large teachers that represent either different grades, different subjects. We've had teachers in specials, we've had teachers at middle, high school. We typically have representation at each school, so elementary, middle, and high, and that kind of makes up the total meet and confer. There's 12 total members, so 6 district administrations and 6 certified teachers.
And do you happen to know the percentage of our teachers that are members of the HEA?
I do not know that off the top of my head.
And do we have teachers that are not part of the HEA that are part of the meet and confer in order to make sure their voices are heard?
I believe so. I believe there is an individual or 2 that are not. Well, I don't want to speak to that. I can follow up on that.
Okay. Thank you. I have more questions, if you don't mind. Go ahead.
While she's looking to confirm that the meet and confer participants, do they have a term limit, or do they change every so often who's on this, in this team? God bless you.
Yeah, it does cycle pretty frequently. Obviously, the president and the HA president and vice president are kind of standing members, as well as the secretary. But over the last 3 years since I've been here, there's been a few changes to those individuals. So, as well as to the district team as well, we try to get new voices, different opinions, because we want that robust conversation as well as representation in different opinions, right? That's the whole point of those conversations. So,
President
Anderson.
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
President Anderson and members of the board, I did want to say that the teachers that are on Meet and Confer work to support all employees, and it's not just members of HEA. So hats off to them. That's important to understand.
And I appreciate that. I just, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that those that are not, that choose not to be a part of the HEA, that their voices are heard too. Question about the M&O and the funds that we have. So I know that at some point there used to be a cap of 4% as far as our carry forward, and the legislature got rid of that cap. And our carry forward were about 25% of our total budget. And I want to make sure that, and I attended the committee meeting last night, so I just want to make sure that people understand our total budget, and the fact that this is, when we look at the December financial report, we've got 25 million sitting in our M&O, classroom site fund almost at 14 million, and our capital at 4.3, and our adjacent ways at 2.7. Now, does that 2.7 include the tax levy that we approved last year?
yeah, so that includes that levy. That's a budgeted fund, so that would include the 1.5 million that we levied in this year's budget.
Another thing is the amount of cash that we have on hand, $31 million, and I understand that some of that money is restricted, some of it's semi-restricted, and some of it we do have the opportunity to be able to transfer to M&O if needed. So when we talk about, I know the reduction of staff here is not for the purposes of like we're having to reduce staff because we have to, and it's because of enrollment purposes. But I want to make sure that the community understands when they look at our financial reports that although last night you said you'd never want to touch that cash that's there, but that is money that is ours to use. So I want to ensure that we consider that when making decisions as far as any type of, pay increase or whatever that, and any type of maintenance or anything that the district needs, that we're tapping into these funds. Our 4 years ago, our M&O override, I believe, was about $6 million. In 4 years, we have grown to 25 million in our M&O, and that's great. That's wonderful, and I love that that we've been able to do that and grow the M&O. But I want to ensure that if we need it, we're using those dollars because that's there to use, because it's quite a bit of money. Also, the cash that we have, do you know if that sits in any brokerage accounts? Are we earning interest on that?
No, so President Anderson, Member Van Hoek, school districts are obligated to hold their money at the county treasurer. We cannot apportion that money into our own bank account. The county treasurer does apply interest at their rates to some of those funds, but so that does help a little bit. But we're not privy to keeping that money in any sort of district-owned account. We have to run that money through the Maricopa County treasurer.
Interesting. I just know of a different district that was investing in Charles Schwab. So anyway, let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. And are we prepaying for any expenses for 24-25 budget?
The biggest prepays that we do are with property casualty insurance and workers' comp. We prepay for those. Since with the district that's been a practice, it's now kind of built into our budget. So that prepaid expense is happening every year, but we know that it's going to hit. We're budgeting for that this year that we're paying for next year. So next year we'll budget for FY25 that we're paying for 26. So those are the biggest prepays that we do. And there's limitations, I'm sorry, that on the allowability of prepay, and property casualty insurance and workers' comp is one of the few that are allowed.
And for the 3 additional paid holidays, do you know what the financial impact of that would be?
Yeah, it's approximately $350,000.
Anybody else can jump in while I look at my notes if you have questions.
Thanks. Thank you, President Anderson. Mr. Moore, just correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a minute. Originally, the carryover that we had last year was in preparation because the AEL might not pass the aggregate expenditure limit, and we knew that there was going to be a potential loss, so we were kind of, padding our landing if we needed to, so we wouldn't have to lose staff or make cuts that are difficult. And I don't remember if this was like in passing conversation or a past meeting. I want to say it was a past meeting, in that we talked about this year, the carry forward, and part of the reason we were looking at that is because our M&O is running out and we don't know what the outcome will be, should we put it to a vote or do those types of things, and what that money is going to look like over the course of the next few years. And from my understanding, what we had in that carry forward was kind of in preparation for what could be coming in the years as some of the current M&O starts to, taper off. Is that correct?
So President Anderson, Member Wade, yeah, twofold. Over the last few years, yes, we utilized COVID relief funds, right, to supplement our M&O budget. We received, in excess about $25 million in COVID relief funds over the last 3 years. That's an influx of a lot of one-time money, which is why the carry-forward budget was inflated, right? It worked in preparation because of that AEL, the AEL cliff, essentially, or because we were at risk of having to reduce our budget by 19%. So we inadvertently put ourselves in a position to be able to cover that. It wasn't intentional, but once we were there, we felt we should probably stay here because this AEL limit is hanging over our head, and it continues to hang over our head. It has now inadvertently worked to look kind of future-proof us, because now if this M&O override fails, we now have some contingency to offset probably the 2 harshest years, or year 1 and year 2 of the phase down, if that were to not pass on the election. So wasn't planned that way. There was no intentional to carry forward that much. It just was how it worked out. And now we continue to budget for that in our budget as a bigger contingency amount, so.
And I'm sorry, one more time, can you remind me for year 1 and 2, if the M&O doesn't pass, what that will be?
Yeah, so again, we're fully funded into next year's budget, fiscal 25. Fiscal 26 would be a phase down of year 1, which would be a 33% reduction in the $13 million M&O override that we currently receive. So that's about $3.5 million. FY27 would be the second year of the phase down. That's a 66% decrease. That's about $9 million. And then going into FY28, that would be the complete phase down. That would complete the phase down. So that would be a reduction of $13 million from our budget. Again, we have several opportunities to kind of take that to the voters and try to renew it, but you know.
Thank you.
President Anderson, Mr. Moore, typical carryover, just looking at surrounding districts, is 3 to 5%. And as I mentioned, we're at 25%. And it's great that we can do that. But again, when we talk about going out for bonds and overrides, we have quite a bit of money in our bank. And the funding, has increased over the years. This is the most amount of money that we're getting from legislation. And my concern is we need to ensure that we are using these funds. And yeah, it's nice to be able to have that, but you can't keep this money in the bank and then go to the bank and ask them for money when we have quite a bit of money to utilize. We wouldn't do that in our personal finances, and I'm concerned that we would do that to our taxpayers. The funding, just the cash on hand at $31 million, I mean, that comes from our preschools and any of those funds that, programs that we have within the district, and it's actual cash, cold hard cash that we have on hand. So aside from our M&O and our capital funding, we need to be able to consider that before we would consider any cuts or any type of, and that should definitely be a conversation within our committee meetings that you have for the bond. I think it's important to keep that in mind. Also, we had on here it says 24.5 balance carry forward, but on the December financial report it says 25.3. Do you know what that difference is?
Yeah, so we're looking at projected ending balances, and the December financials are current year ending current balances as of today. We still have, we're in February, we still have 3 more months of school, as well as 5 more months in the fiscal year. So there's a lot of expenditures still to take place.
So why wouldn't that be listed as part of the encumbrances?
Why wouldn't that? It could be one-time obligations. The encumbrances are encumbered, our purchase orders that are in place. So salaries and benefits, those are all encumbered. A lot of the M&O obligations that we have remaining for the year are department expenditures that are done either for licensors. These are POs that are put in at any given point in the year when that renewal comes up to date. So.
Okay, and so we don't plan that within our forecast, that and be able to add it to the encumbrances in order to know that difference.
a lot of times we're waiting for those quotes to be received. There may be price changes or differences in contract language or different purchasing mechanisms that are being utilized to procure that item. And until all those items are known, we don't input a purchase order because then we would be either undervaluing or overvaluing that item. So we wouldn't go through the process of putting a purchase order in place until we know exactly what that expense would be.
Thank you so much.
President Anderson. Member Van Hook, I hear you with our cash accounts. I just want to clarify, though, that there is a lot of those accounts that we can't just touch. So it's kind of misleading saying we just have 31 million sitting in cash at our disposal. While there is $31 million there, it's not just at our disposal that we can use for anything. A large amount we have is in our self-insurance. We can't just use that for anything. We can't just pull that. So I hear what you're saying, that we do need to be looking and going through what is available for our use, what are we using, but it's not that we just have $31 million sitting out there going, okay, well, we can just pull $31 million into our M&O. So I just want to clarify that. And like Mr. Moore had said, part of the reason that we had a large M&O and carryover is that we did receive our ESSER funds. And I just want to say I'm thankful for how we used our ESSER funds, because as of right now today, you are hearing of several districts who are falling into some serious financial issues and doing reductions in workforces because they were not as thoughtful with their ESSER money. And that's been a conversation with Mr. Moore when we got our ESSER money, and that's what's in our budget here, where it talks about these counselors, that part of the requirements, there were requirements and stuff around the ESSER money, and we hired counselors, but when we chose to do that with the ESSER money, we had the conversations of this is one-time money, and it's gonna run out. And then what are we gonna do? Because we didn't want what I'm gonna call a one and done, although it would have been a 2-year thing, and then go, I'm sorry, we can't provide counselors anymore because that ESSER money's gone. So that was something that even then, when we were hiring them, we knew was going to have to roll into our M&O. And so we were able to pay a lot of things out of that ESSER money that will now roll into our M&O, and we're going to see a very different picture, because I agree. I don't know very many people who can sit with a 25% overage in their bank account, and if they can, then they're probably not working as hard as Mr. Moore. So, and that's not going to be considered typical, and I just find that we've been able to plan ahead and be smart about it, but we are going to see that go away. We are going to see that dwindle down. We're not going to have as much carryover. And we've been in some different financial situations than some of our larger districts around us, that I know my conversations with Mr. Moore has been a lot on contingency, that we didn't know what was going to happen, that we anticipated some things coming up, and some things did, and some things didn't, or it wasn't as bad as we anticipated. So, so part of that, and just being in the know, who gets a $400,000 increase in water? I'm just saying, who gets a $400,000 increase in water? Well, Town of Gilbert, but that's huge. And if we don't plan for some contingencies, and again, I hear you, 25%, I hear you, but those are some things that we've been able to to be fortunate to cover without going, how are we going to pay this? So I hear what you're saying, and I think that just asking that, okay, let's look and see what is there is good. And again, we've been able to do some of this because of our override. So I do think we need to look at that, know what we're asking for. If we're asking for an override, we need to know what and why. But a lot of the funds that we have out there, we can't just spend in any fashion.
President Anderson, Board Member Reese. Yes, and I mentioned that some funds are restricted, some are not restricted, and some are semi-restricted. For instance, Medicaid reimbursement, it's the USFR description specifically says can be used for anything and can be transferred to M&O. And we have a budget balance of almost $2 million in there. We also have community schools, which says any unused monies must be transferred to M&O funds, and we have almost 2.5 million in there. So there are funds in there that could absolutely be transferred to M&O if needed, and that I hope that if it ever comes down to it, that we would consider that.
For sure, and I know just from time to time, while it may be restricted or unrestricted, that there's purposes for them. So there's certain things that do get paid out of those, even if they're restricted or unrestricted. So
These
I
are leftover
agree.
balances is what I'm talking about. But
That's
yes.
as of December.
Correct.
We still have 5 months of school.
Right.
So some of the things we'll see dwindle down a lot more too, that you start out a little bit higher. And I'm not discounting that. We need to be aware that we still have more school and we've received payments and some, the payments come from this year into, like at the end of, for this school year, we may not get that payment. We might have just gotten a payment in October that made it look higher, that we have stuff we need to pay out of.
Right. And I know that like for the first 6 months, I think it was 46 million. And then for the second half of the school year, we've got encumbrances of 53 million. So there's about a 6.5 million additional funds that we'll be spending, that we didn't spend the first half of the year. So I don't know what those are right now that we're expecting to spend that 6.7 million. And then also when we voted on the tax levy, that was one of my concerns is, when we have funds to use, again, going out and taxing the community is a concern of mine.
I want to make sure we're staying on budget.
It is.
It's the tax levy.
Well, it's part of all the finances.
Okay.
But anyway, so I just wanted to point out so that those in the community that don't understand, because it's taken me a while, even though I have a finance background, it's taken me a while to understand all the coding myself. So that's all.
President, I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, I know we've had a slide on the cash on hand before, but is there something that you can create for the community so that we aren't, just saying they know that the 31 million isn't just for us to touch and where this goes and what would happen if we depleted those funds? So we have a clear picture.
Certainly, I can look to add that into the next budget conversation.
Thank you very much.
President Anderson, first off, I wanted to express gratitude to you, Mr. Moore. Obviously, I've only been on this board for a short period of time. And my experience with our CFOs in the past have been very, very different. Something that I tremendously respect you for, and I think a lot of people throughout district can say the same, is that while you are extremely fiscally responsible, I think you value staff. You value the importance of the people that we have in this district, and at the end of the day, that's for students. And what we can do to serve our students best is to keep the best teachers that we have around. And, you know, considering how hard it is to be in this profession and the very apparent problems that we're walking into in terms of staffing and keeping people and everything else, because at the end of the day, none of this works if we don't have staff to keep this working. So I wish to express gratitude to that, because I think that is something that I've at least felt from you is always at the center in terms of how we talk about, you know, staying competitive with our districts that are neighboring us, because it's very hard, us being a smaller district surrounded by such large districts that are capable of doing certain things. And so as we go forward for that, I am very much grateful. And I'm also grateful to meet and confer and how that process does go down, because at the end of the day, as a teacher, we cannot do anything without our, you know, supportive staff helping us accomplish our tasks. And so I think that's just a great testament to Higley, to shadow what Board Member Reese expressed, in that we try to do the best we can to take care of our own and make it an environment in which it's difficult to leave because you want to be here. So thank you.
Any more questions or comments for Mr. Moore? All right. 7.5, bringing Mr. Moore back to the mic on the capital budget review. What did I say, 7.4? I'm sorry, 7.5, if I didn't say that.
President Reese, members of the board, appears I am monopolizing this meeting, but budget is a hot conversation tonight. As it always is, right? That is the nature of Arizona. So tonight we're presenting our first review of our capital budget. Just a little recap of what is capital, right? It is separate from M&O, but capital's also known as district additional assistance if you're looking at our budget forms, but most commonly referred to as capital, is items that typically have a useful life of at least 1 year. They're typically repaired rather than replaced. An independent unit that retains its original shape, appearance, character, et cetera. And those examples include constructing, renovating, remodeling buildings. Some other examples also include athletic equipment, furniture, technology, software. Whereas on the flip side, what we just finished discussing was M&O, which is what we pay our salaries and benefits, our supplies, services, repairs, and fees from. So this presentation addresses our capital budget. Some of the highlights include DAA, as I said, that's the, I guess, appropriated term by the state, but we refer to as capital. It's going into this third year of a scheduled inflation adjustment. This is year 3 of 3. 3 years ago, Governor Judge Ducey implemented an inflation increase to this fund, which has not seen an inflation adjustment. Again, this bucket is separate from the M&O bucket, is not subject to an annual increase in inflation. And so the appropriation 3 years ago had a small adjustment to this fund to apply some inflation increases over the course of the last 3 years. So we're going into our third year. What that means is we're going to see about a 4.6% increase in this fund. And so it does help, does not solve the complete issue, because we're still seeing drastic underfunding with our capital budget and how much it can support the district. One of the major highlights you'll see in this presentation include fewer major maintenance projects. As we just presented the M&O budget, you're seeing a lot more expenses come back into the M&O budget. So we don't, utilizing that capacity within the M&O budget, we don't have that flexibility to bring those over into the capital budget. You'll see this proposal has no additional transfers to support major maintenance. On the third bullet there, one of our major emphasis was addressing our security cameras. And so we are in the process of bringing forth phase 2 of the planned security camera infrastructure upgrade. This plan focuses again on next year, and that would be a potential phase 3. We have seen great success with some of these implementations of these new security cameras. They're night and day from what we've utilized in the past. The technology is leaps and bounds above what we had. And so it's already helped in several instances where we had property damage or people coming onto our property, we've been able to easily identify them, get them to our SROs, and further either prosecute or proceed with addressing that trespassing. So the description to the left kind of looks at some of the upgrades that we've done this year. So the top picture is the Sossaman field lights. So again, some of the just unforeseen things that I think go like implied, right? It's implied that these lights are going to continue to work. So, and the reality is these are common maintenance items that we replace in our maintenance budget. And so the top one shows our field lights at Sossaman being repaired. The bottom description shows a main circuit breaker that was repaired this year. Looking at our capital budget, we go line by line. I'll go into greater detail on this, so I'll kind of peruse through this rather quickly, but how we've presented this over the last couple of years, we have our categories. These sometimes represent departments or areas of focus in our capital budget. Column number 2, the DAA, so that's our capital dollar amount that we're allocating towards those capital categories. And then you have adjacent ways, which is our other capital fund. So you'll see starting at the top category, we have district-wide. Again, I'm gonna go into more detail on these. And I think I'll reserve the right to do that so I don't monopolize the whole entire conversation, but going on, there were 2 pages of the capital budget. I really want to emphasize, again, the first column is our categories, second column is our capital budget, and the third column is our adjacent ways total. So moving to the bottom of the page, I kind of want to explain how the capital budget amount comes to fruition. We have a state allocated apportioned capital budget, and so that represents that middle line there in the bottom category, the DAA budget capacity for fiscal 25. So we're anticipating a $7.8 million budget. That's our annual appropriation of capital funds for the district. In addition, I've mentioned previously in the M&O conversation that we transfer $3.55 million to cover the middle school lease payment. So that's really a dollar for dollar transfer because we have to pay that lease obligation from the capital fund. That's the reason we transfer those funds over. We're anticipating carrying forward about $4 million from this year's budget into next year. And so that is included when you calculate that total budget capacity. And so you'll see a total capital budget capacity of $15.3 million. If you have been on the board for a while, you'll see that number is about half of what we've previously approved in the last couple of years. A lot of that is because we are spending those capital dollars and putting them to use. So diving into the details of the capital budget, I mentioned the categories, and so each of these categories, again, is represented on that previous slide, but I'll share a little bit of information on each one of those budgets. So the district-wide capital allocation includes, at $66,000, includes our various department budgets that have capital funds. So we have SPED, our superintendent's budget, our public information's budget. So that's the accumulation of those budgets that represents the $66,000. Adjacent Ways Fund, as Ms. Van Hoek mentioned before, that's a levied fund that currently sits at a budget about $2 million. We're anticipating bringing forth in a budget about $2 million into next year. We are still working on receiving bids for the Sossaman bus lane expansion and then researching, as I mentioned previously, that Williamsfield High School student parking lot. It's just a current status update on that. We're still working with the town of Gilbert to make with a feasibility study on whether we can add a light at the north end of that parking lot where the pool is. If that is allowed, then that will greatly allow us to then move forward with some future planning in that and start to assess what we can do with a light at the north end of that parking lot. So still in the works. The town of Gilbert has not communicated that, yes or no, but that is something, again, we're researching because we know Williamsfield High School is an issue when pick up and drop off.
Mr. Moore, didn't the town previously say no to that when we asked them?
They have previously
ago.
said no, but in recent conversations, they've been more open to entertaining that idea. So previously, right, our enrollment was not as high as it was now. So we're seeing increased traffic that was not previously
No, I know it's miserable, as Ms. Wade just mentioned to me. I just wondered if, I don't know if this was somewhere that I missed that they had a change of heart, so I was just.
They have recently had a change of heart and been more entertaining the idea more so. And so
Awesome.
we are proceeding with pursuing that because
Yeah.
I think that is in the.
Maybe we could add the left-hand turn to be longer too. for that. The what? Yeah, remove it, yeah, for sure.
We're looking
I'll
at
take
all
anything.
options with that. But yeah, still in progress. Again, with the town, there's no quick solution, right? There needs to be
Right.
studies and assessments done to make sure that we're not making other unintended impacts to traffic. So, but that's in the works, and that's, again, why we levied for those funds.
Thank you for clarifying.
The middle school lease, I've mentioned this multiple times now, that payment is $3.55 million. We transfer that exact amount to capital to make that payment. So it's a dollar for dollar. Looking at the ed service budget, we have a category assessment student information. So that is our assessment team. So we've allocated $350,000. That covers our Canvas, our Synergy, which is our attendance platform, FlexPoint, which is previously called Florida Virtual. That's our HVA software, and then other smaller assessment software. Instructional materials, this provides the curriculum supplementals that we need for several of our programs that have special curriculum. Those include dual language immersions, HTA, et cetera. And so that's what the $275,000 covers. The textbook adoption, we have an annual curriculum cycle, and next year we have social studies scheduled. And so, in talking with Ms. Richards, we are taking our time moving into that adoption subject. Probably be towards the later of the fiscal year, but there's been several changes in curriculum, and that's a subject it's been highly politicized. I'll just say that. So we're working, but that is in our cycle, and so we're budgeting for that. We'll, again, inform the board that it's a very public involvement process with parents and community. And when that does take place, again, we'll make sure that those are communicated out. Looking at technology, we have categories that in 4 kind of main categories. So we look at classroom technology, and those are student devices. So for fiscal 25, we're looking at replacing all the high school freshman devices. And so by replacing those freshman devices, those devices now stay with that student for the entirety of their 4-year tenure at the high school, pending they continue to finish with Higley and graduate. That cost is $500,000. The district-wide refresh, we have ongoing teacher laptop replacement and network upgrades. And so for fiscal 25, the replacement schedule includes Higley High School, Sossaman, and Cooley Middle School. In addition, we have several telecom upgrades. Several of our systems in terms of telecom are outdated and need to be refreshed. District-wide software, this is our annual software renewals. This has relatively stayed flat over the last couple of years, but this includes our Microsoft. We're a Microsoft Office district. Visions is our financial software and human resource software. Frontline is our hiring software. And so this includes all those annual software obligations that the district has. Safety and security, I kind of touched on this in the highlight, but this would, we have tentatively budgeted phase 3 for our video camera replacements, as well as the CareHawk intercom system. So we're scheduling and phasing these approaches in rather than taking one fall swoop. We've done several things budgetarily to kind of minimize the cost by utilizing in-house district maintenance people to help with the install. We're doing a lot of the cabling ourselves as well, but still utilizing the vendor to make sure that we're not breaking any warranty and maintaining that warranty. So the phased approach has worked really well. And again, we just finished phase 1, and we'll be bringing a recommendation for phase 2 in this fiscal year. Maintenance and construction, we have reduced this budget going into next year slightly. This $800,000 covers our HVAC replacements that are scheduled, water heaters, custodial equipment, electrical lighting, and other various capital replacements, both planned and unplanned that come throughout the year. We always have a plan, but there's always unforeseen capital needs that come about during the year. We have a small capital budget for our grounds department. This helps replace and refurbish some of the grounds equipment that either is broken or needs to be replaced on an annualized schedule. And then thirdly, we do a capital project request. This $250,000 that is budgeted allows our schools the opportunity to submit for capital projects that they could not afford within their allocated budget. These are bigger projects that typically have a larger impact on their campus. Some of the projects that we've improved recently are like large-scale furniture replacement, as well as other like shade structures, et cetera. So some of the things that they could not typically afford, they get an opportunity to request up, and district cabinet gets to kind of prioritizes those into that $250,000 budget. Major maintenance, as I mentioned, we would not be transferring over any additional funds, but we have still some major maintenance needs that were not addressed in last year's budget. So a lot of these items, you'll see that were carry forward from last year. We did not get to a chance to support these within our current year budget, mostly sometimes due to we had some inflation increases across some of the originally budgeted items that we intended to do. Those prices came back higher than what we anticipated, so we had to postpone some projects. And again, we're continuing to utilize the capital lease funds that were returned to the district when we refinanced that lease for the Cooley and Sossaman Middle School. So those lease funds, again, were returned to the district. They were meant for those two schools, and so we're maintaining and honoring that and utilizing those funds to offset the district obligation. Transportation, currently right now, we have, the board approved earlier this year 2 bus replacements, and talking with the director of transportation. We are proposing not allocating any dollars here and utilizing some of the cash funds, the enterprise service fund that transportation has available to it, to support their capital needs next year. So as Ms. Van Hoek mentioned, we are utilizing those funds in our budget projections into next year. School capital budgets, I kind of briefly touched on these. These are formula based on student count. So each school gets a allocated budget for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We also call that FF&E. It's $45 per student, $45 per student based on 100-day ADM. So this budget allows that site administration to fund some of their priorities within their school, right? Every school has kind of some different needs, especially based on program. And so this fund gives those site admin some autonomy to make some capital improvements to their site. Athletic equipment, at the high schools and middle schools, we have sports programs that the district supports. That $100,000 is split between the high schools and middle schools to help support and maintain those athletic requirements and needs. So we do the same thing on the flip side, for our non-sports individuals with instruments and individuals that participate in band and some of our other, not curriculum, but like extracurricular activities. And so we provide $100,000 for those fine arts kind of groups and categories. And then last slide here is we have a warehouse print shop. Again, utilizing some of the cash funds that we have. Our print shop has been successful in garnering revenue from not only utilizing our district to make print jobs, but we have a number of external users that utilize our print shop for print jobs. And so, again, we'll look to support their capital needs with that external revenue that we're receiving for the print shop and warehouse. And then the capital budget contingency going, that's going to be set aside for fiscal 25 is $2 million. And so it's approximately 13% of the total FY25 capital budget. That is down year after year from what we've previously carried over. 2 years ago, it was $8 million. This year is $4 million, and now we're carrying forward $2 million. And I would be remiss if, I would not probably recommend going below that. Capital can see sometimes a lot more higher dollar figure incidents or unforeseen circumstances. And being able to support those in the fiscal year is why we carry forward contingency. And so with that, we have a couple meetings scheduled to review the capital budget. Again, the second review coming March 6th. I'll do a much more scaled down version of this if there's no further questions or no items that you want me to look into or provide more detail on. And then we'll ask for tentative approval April 3rd to allow our maintenance team and other departments to get ahead of the procurement cycle and purchase items for the upcoming year. And that's been our practice, and it's worked effectively in allowing us to have those items as of July 1 and for the start of the school year.
President Anderson, Mr. Moore, how many phases do we have for the cameras? I see 3, but is there more?
Right now, we have planned out to 3. That is the extent of what we planned so far. We had a strategic plan to address the exterior campuses, the exterior entrances in the first phase at our elementary schools. Phase 2 would address the exterior entrances at our secondary campuses. And then phase 3 would look at addressing some of our high usage interior areas where we typically see areas of discipline or areas where we need to constantly review instances or occurrences that may occur.
Okay. And then I saw that, so in August, we approved 2 campuses for HVAC. The next, whatever the next phase is as far as HVAC, I'm guessing that's what's included in here. Major project, is that part of?
Major projects is all exterior weatherization.
Okay. Do we have any more? I know we recently approved more HVACs. Do we have any more of those to replace or repair?
Yeah, we constantly have HVAC units, and that would come from the general maintenance capital budget. And then again, we try to utilize the school facilities boards to submit up for units that have either expired or are not working to support, the replacement of those items. So we try to utilize grant funds, but are you looking for a particular schedule on HVAC replacement? I don't.
No, I just saw, I knew I saw it somewhere in this presentation and I couldn't figure out where it was. I found it. Thank you. And then just one more question, I'm sorry. On the financial report where it says Civic Center, what is that exactly?
Yeah, Civic Center is our rental revenue.
Rental?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. All right. Next, item 7.6, we're looking at the proposed changes to policy BE, school board meetings, and this one is Dr. Lindsay.
Good evening, President Anderson, members of the board. This is one of 4 policies that we're bringing forward as a first read based on legislative changes or updates that were provided to us from ASBA in their most recent policy update. So the first one is on policy BE, school board meetings. This is an update to policy per recent legislation that adds language specific to seating at board meetings. So schools, school boards, and executive boards and municipalities are required to provide for an additional, or to provide an amount of seating sufficient to accommodate the reasonably anticipated attendance of all persons desiring to attend the meetings when feasible. It does not require the public body to relocate the meeting outside of the largest regular meeting room. And except for a meeting through technological devices, the agenda for a public meeting is required to include the notice of the time that the public will have access to the meeting place.
President Anderson, Lindsay, Dr. Lindsay, sorry. I wanted to see if you can explain the sentence where it says a meeting includes a one-way electronic communication by one board member of a public body, and then I don't know why I don't move my mic to me instead of my chair to my mic. And then the second sentence, a meeting also includes an exchange of electronic communication among a quorum of members. I'm just like, wouldn't that be an open meeting law violation since it wouldn't be posted?
That's my understanding.
Okay. So that's a practice that should never occur.
Right. I believe that they're defining what a meeting is within the policy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Moving on to 7.7, we're going to look at the proposed changes to policy BEDB, and Dr. Lindsay is back.
President Anderson, board members, this is an update to policy per recent legislation again that relates to the previous policy we just looked at. Specifically, the agenda for the public meeting is required to include the notice of the time that the public will have physical access to the meeting place. The exception would be for a meeting through technological devices. Additionally, the updated policy provides individuals with a disability to request a reasonable accommodation and procedures how to do so. And finally, upon review of this policy, district leadership would also like to propose that the board remove this section of the policy that outlines the order of business and instead put it into the policy regulation. When we reviewed the policy in our current the outline in our current policy does not reflect the current governing board agenda structure, and we think that moving this language to the regulation would be more appropriate to provide flexibility so the board isn't constantly having to update the policy.
President Anderson, Dr. Lindsay, I'm just curious why we wouldn't just leave that in the policy. And so whatever language that's in the regulation, why wouldn't we just leave it a part of the policy?
Board member, or I'm sorry, Vice President Van Hook, it's more for flexibility so we can make updates or the board can make updates to the structure or the agenda. So we're not constantly having to bring forward the policy to have it approved again. We can make those regulations administratively based on the agenda of the board meetings.
Thank you. And I did notice on here, it says, on the regulations, it says vote of members. And I was just curious if we can change that to say governing board members.
On the regulation,
Yes. Yes, so majority vote of governing board members.
Yep, we can include that.
Thank you. So do we have to?
regulation.
Right, okay, so they could just correct it.
Correct. Anyone else? thank you for that add. I think that sounds more professional and it meets for the purpose of the regulation. Okay. Now we are going on to 7.8, the proposed changes to policy IHA, Basic Instructional Program. And this time we're going to hear from Dr. Lindsay.
Again. This is an update to policy per recent legislation, again, per HB 2060 ARS 15-211. This adds language and adds a literacy coach or literacy specialist to each school to the list of employees that may satisfy the dyslexia training requirement at each K-3 school in the district. Previously, these positions were not included. However, that's been our practice, and all of our literacy coaches are already trained, so it just adds language to our policy. Additionally, Administrative Code RZ-2-301 provides basic instructional program requirements for common schools grades K through 8. ARS 15-710 requires common school grades K through 8 and high schools grades 9 through 12 to provide a total of 1 year instruction in state and federal constitutions, American institutions and ideals, and in the history of Arizona, including the history of Native Americans in Arizona. Please note that HUSD is already in compliance with these requirements. Also, policy language has been updated to align with current basic instructional program requirements.
President Anderson, Dr. Lindsay, I don't necessarily have a question. I just want to point out that our ARS 1-602 of the Parental Bill of Rights, just backtrack a little bit. So section F of the policy states that health and physical education, including mental health instruction may be included as part of other subject areas and shall comply with the statute. I just want to make a note just to mention that part of the Parental Bill of Rights, section E, states that and paraphrasing, that parents have the right to opt their children out if they choose not to participate in any type of mental health instruction. And one question actually I do have is, so if they, let's say if there was mental health instruction in health and PE, what options do parents have in that case?
Vice President Van Hook, from an elementary perspective, it's PE, and so it's more about healthy habits, if anything else. With respect to secondary, I'll defer to my colleague here.
Thank you.
I would say it's the same. And at the secondary level when we look at PE classes as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mine is just language in here. If we could go back to the first page and scroll all the way down to where it's redlined, the instructional program will include planned sequences in. I don't know if we could keep a sentence there. It doesn't necessarily have to be this one, but it opens up for what introducing A, B, C, all the way down to what those are. I don't have a proposed language, and I'm not sure if maybe we could start with why was that sentence removed?
President Anderson, I'm not sure why they removed it. We did a comparison between the two policies, and the updated policy from ASBA had that line not a part of the policy, so we struck it from ours, but I don't really see any reason why we couldn't have it there. I don't know if anyone else has any comment to that.
I wasn't sure if it had to do with sequences, if that was anything to do with it, and even if we left that out, it just seems odd we stop at one part and then we just open up with an A, B, if we could just introduce those sections. That's all I have to contribute.
President Anderson, I would guess that it potentially has to do with the word sequences, which implies an order, a required order. So, I mean, we could look at the instructional program will include and then list.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good on 7.8? All right. Next, we're going to go to 7.9, the proposed changes to policy IKF, graduation requirements. We have a newcomer. Mr. Lessenhauser, what do you have for us?
Thank you, President Anderson. As Dr. Lindsay had said, these are updates for ASBA, for our previous legislative update, and we're updating IKF. We're not changing any language. We're just adding the language. It's actually the exact same language that is in policy IHA, which was then referenced. And so if you'll see on the second page, it says pursuant to ARS 15-17 or 710, a total of 1 year instruction in state and federal constitutions, American institutions and ideals, and the history of Arizona, including the history of Native Americans in Arizona, is required during grades 9 through 12. We are already compliant in this. We are just adding the language from legislation for the update. And this IKF is referenced in IHA, so we wanted to make sure that we were consistent when it was referenced, then you would turn around and see it in the graduation policy as well.
Okay, thank you. No questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Now we're going to jump into action items. Item 8.1, BDA, Board Organizational Meeting. This will be the second read. Do we have any questions or comments regarding this policy, second read? Nothing? Okay, well, I motion to, did you have anything? Okay, I motion to approve policy BDA Board Organizational Meeting. In a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, action items, again, 8.2, communication protocols. Any questions or comments, input regarding our communication protocols?
President Anderson, I've got quite a bit. So when we talked about moving the board meeting to 1 day prior, we were told that we should consider putting that in the communication protocols. And that just, we didn't do that. So I don't, the further conversation did not occur related to that. So, and ultimately, again, we didn't take a final vote as to, we were practicing the change, but there was no vote for that change that occurred. And one of the concerns then was that, you know, if we move it to 1 day earlier, then we're going to have problems with being able to add things to the board, to the agenda.
She's asking where we're at.
Oh, the communication protocols? No, that's what I'm saying. Like we were told that we could add it to the communication protocols and we didn't. And so I'm just wondering, I mean, and the concern was the fact that if we change that, then, you know, we'd miss putting things on the agenda But this agenda, we were adding things to the last minute. So I don't know if that's a conversation that we can have as far as updating, including that in the communication protocols, or
When Ms. McClellan was here, we talked about us getting our board packets on Thursdays, and she recommended it go in the communication protocols, and that it's not there. So
No, there we go. What I thought we had talked about, and part of the reason that it wasn't, so correct me if I'm wrong, because then I clearly misunderstood the last one, is that we were also talking about the potential of doing like the work study sessions, and the work study sessions would heavily impact what we decided in that other area. And so the way I interpreted that last meeting that we had where we discussed it was a plethora of us were interested in that work study session, which is what we said as the directive going forward, because that would greatly impact the need for an extra day or different time. That's the whole point of it, right, was for that. So I think that's, at least the way I understood it, I didn't expect it to be in here because I thought we were going to talk about the work study session.
So, President Anderson, you're going to have a new superintendent, and I think that it'll be important for him to be able to work with you to determine what that looks like. We are sharing the proposed dates with him, but we obviously would like to have his feedback and your feedback on how those work studies and meetings are structured. So we're kind of in a weird spot. I don't know how else to say that. I want to be respectful of you guys and what you want, and I also want to be respectful of him. So, but that's the way I understood it too. So, but if you guys want to wait on this, we can wait, or we can accept it, and it can be, it's not a policy per se, so it could be adjusted. It was important that everybody agree to it and understand it and have input on it, so.
I also, maybe before, I mean, we can always revisit should things have to be revisit, but I also, and it could be just I'm confusing the things, with the lawyer that we talked about previously, one of the things that she talked about was that we could put it in here, but one of the difficulties of that is that it's policy and then it doesn't allow us the opportunity. Was that something else? Oh, then we're good.
yeah,
My
she
bad.
recommended we not put that in policy, and
That's
we
what I
put
thought.
it here.
Okay.
Yeah. I would, I mean, either way, I think that come July, this needs to be revisited again anyway. Dr. Carmen may bring some different perspectives and preferences and things like that too. I don't know anything in it, for me, is urgently needing to be changed as an expectation, but I'm also okay with what's there, so if someone feels that we need to vote on this to have this in place at the moment, then I'm okay that way too. But I think either way, we have to revisit this in July with Dr. Carmen.
Ms. Reese, I agree. I think it doesn't, all of these things in place, I mean, it's a reminder of communication protocols, and it doesn't bother me to keep it in since we're going to revisit it in July, that I'm fine with a vote today.
So any of the recommendations that I had, that I had, would it be best, do you recommend to save it until July? Like Ms. Reese said, it's not going to change how we do things either way. It's just updating verbiage. Like, for example, can I just mention, one of my recommendations was on the page where it says governing board superintendent roles and responsibilities with the orange table. It has the board in one column, superintendent in another column, and I just recommended under either create its own row or add to possibly ensures accountability, make sure we add evaluate superintendent in there, because it's just one of our roles and duties that we work very diligently on, and that's not added or listed in our roles and responsibilities. So again, it's policy, we already have it in there. Is it a communication protocol? I don't know. Like I feel like this document's really long. I went to the Queen Creek school districts and it was 1 page. 1 page. Not saying we have to be like them, but I just thought, man, they got it in 1 page. And you know, another thing, but I do find this one important as far as communication, is that the very last thing after board meeting protocols, I thought about adding policy following and making sure we follow policy BGD, and that's administration's communication to the board on any regulation or exhibit changes. Because I don't think we've received any, and you may not have made many, but there was one when I was going through grievances where the exhibits had been changed. I believe it was the exhibits, and we had no clue. So I just want to add that would be a great communication protocol, and that's actually a policy that needs to be followed. And of course, it was an old policy. I think it's another one dating back to 2001. But I think it'd be fair. Again, does it have to be added today? No, because it's policy. But it would be good to add. So, I'll keep
I mean, I think keeping your notes makes sense. I also think if it's covered in policy, then I do think that's important going forward, because then we have it, right? And I do think those things are important to include for that. I mean, I don't think this really changes currently how we function either way. So, I mean, I don't have strong feels in any direction kind of deal. So if people are uncomfortable by it, then I think that gets to matter, and then we can go on. I mean, because this is basically what we already had. You eliminated stuff, from my understanding, if I recall. So we had even longer previously.
Board member Wade, it was 13 pages, so yeah.
So, I mean, if somebody's currently uncomfortable, then I say, okay, fine, we can table it and we don't have to worry about it. If ultimately it is a thinner version of what we currently do while still making sure that those policies of concern are already in place, then, I mean, I personally don't have any strong feels either way, so I don't have a problem voting for it, because we will be revisiting it as we should, but yeah.
Board Member Anderson, I do have concerns with a couple sentences in here, and I think that, so I'll mention the sentences. The part that says that all communication with news media for the purposes seeking or arranging.
Page
It's
2.
Second page. Sorry, I highlighted my page, so I assumed yours was highlighted too. So it says, arranging news coverage, providing official statement from the district, or responding to requests from media have to be channeled through the office of the superintendent. As I stated last time, we are elected officials. I took an oath to defend the Constitution, and I surely will not allow myself to be silenced. I have a First Amendment right to be able to have those conversations, and as Christina mentioned last time, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but just because I can doesn't mean I shouldn't either. And so, and then the second sentence is on page 6, where it says, board members and staff will support or stay silent and not undermine the decision of the board. We are individual board members, and we all have a voice. And so, again, telling us to stay silent is a violation of our First Amendment right, and I will not allow that for myself or for anyone else up here, because that is our constitutional right to be able to have the ability to speak about whether we like something or dislike something. So I would like to see that verbiage removed. And I mean, I don't know how, if everybody else would support silencing themselves. I'm not sure why when we all took that oath. But that's my recommendation, is to, remove that. This could be a recommendation board members and staff, should support, but to say will support or stay silent is a bit ridiculous for me. Let's see, sorry, do you have? Go ahead, and then I'll go on about.
Do you want to continue? Okay. President Anderson, Vice President Van Hook, I mean, if you guys I'm making notes of your comments, and we can take them back and add this, and like I said, your new superintendent will probably want to review this and provide input as well. So, we can continue to revise, and like you said, you're probably going to go through this in July, and excuse me, Dr. Carmen, if I'm speaking out of turn, that our intention was to simplify the communication protocols we had in place, because 13 pages was 13 pages, and it was a lot. So I always think works in progress are good. So, I mean, we can take it back, add the comments you said, and let this individual work to think through it too. Because I'm going to guess if I hand this to Dr. Carmen, he's going to have some input.
President Anderson, just and a reminder that these protocols were created between the board members at the time and the superintendent at the time. And this is how some of it was brought by the superintendent, some of it was brought up by board members, that they would like, this is how we want to hold each other accountable. Some of it references policy. Board Member Van Hook, on the media release, there is a policy regarding that. So it's not just in our protocols, there is an actual policy and it references it, KDDA, regarding media. So then that's something we need to look at, because it's actually in policy, it's not just a protocol there. As far as the last part you referenced is that, again, it was created with the board members at the time. This is how they felt was necessary to hold each other accountable. Our role and responsibility is, once the vote is done, that we support the district. Doesn't mean you have to support the vote per se, if you will, but the vote is the vote. If you're on a losing end and it passes with at least 3 people, then it passes and it is what it is, and the expectation of a board member is to support that. How you choose to do that is up to you. And again, this was one of those things that with the board members at the time said the way we hold ourselves accountable to supporting a vote is either stay silent, you just don't talk about it, you don't have to be out there and cheer for it. We're not asking anyone go, yay, something passed that I didn't support, and that's why the words are there. And it's not necessarily to silence you, it is our responsibility is to support the district and the vote, whatever it is, however it goes, one way or another. It doesn't help our district any if we're on a losing end of the vote, that we're out there bashing the district, bashing the board members, bashing the administration because we were on a losing end of a vote. That we need to support it. It passed or it failed, one or the other. And our role as board members is to support whatever that vote is. So I understand you don't like the language. I really think that there's probably more here than we probably really were prepared for tonight. And with a new superintendent, I do think we should probably hold our comments and our suggestions till we can meet with Dr. Carmen, whether that be individually, whether that be a board. We'll have to come together as a board and talk about these, but we'll also have opportunities to meet with Dr. Carmen individually. And unless there's an actual policy, we just remember that these were the expectations of the board at the time, with the superintendent at the time, of how we hold each other accountable and what our expectation of each other should be. We should be planning on holding each other accountable to professionalism and everything that's outlined in there. So it's not policy, it's our expectation of what we should expect from our administration, what they should expect from us, and what we should expect from each other. So I think then it's more important that we include Dr. Carmen in before we go changing stuff. Just my 2 cents.
President Anderson, Board Member Reese, I appreciate the perspective, especially considering you were, part of those types of things. I mean, as a former government teacher, I agree with you that language matters. The way that I interpret it, so I think it's important for clarification and those types of things, is we aren't silent. I mean, we get to use these board meetings to express how we feel about the policies, right? So the way I took it is, as you explained, in that this is, once the decision is made, this is how we have to go forward, this is what we have to do. I mean, we expect the same thing of our staff. When clubs get cut or other things happen, we expect that you aren't going to badmouth the decision, and that this is what we have made and this is how we progress. So I appreciate that. I also think, then I agree with you that maybe we just don't vote and we put that to the future.
So I'd like to make a motion that we table 8.2.
My only question is, so the additions, it's already been, the one that you've uploaded has something, you added the meeting norms to it, so that's a change. So what we're tabling is the original, or this version with the norms added to it? Like, do we need a vote to have the norms? So
because we never voted on the initial change.
Correct.
So essentially by tabling it,
The
it is
original
our, 13-page document.
Okay.
That, not the condensed, our 13-page document, again, is just what is is the expectation.
Right, I was just verifying, it's not this document now, it's the
Correct,
original.
it's back to the original, and we can use this one as a reference of what we would like to see.
Okay.
Thing that is the policy that we have in place that Ms. Reese referenced. Those are the only things that we would have to hold to.
So I second we table it.
Aye.
Aye.
8.3, approval of fiscal year 2024-2025 employee contracts. Any questions regarding employee contracts?
Board Member Anderson, we got an explanation about the fringe benefits. But I don't remember if I saw on the new certified teacher, the language for fringe benefits said pathologist. Was it correct? Okay. And can you explain to me what it is in there that, and you explained it in the email, but if I want to understand it better. What is it that's preventing the board from changing?
Great question. President Anderson, Vice President Van Hook. So the way it is explained in the email to you, which was written today, is that, I'll just read the sentence out so we can go from there. So direct economic fringe benefits means only leave and insurance benefits, correct? So leave is governed by federal, state, and local, our policy rules. So you would not, as a board, you would have to change policy for leave, but you could never change Fair Labor Standards Act, you could never change FMLA, you could not change ADA when it comes to leaves. So that is why that sentence is in there. The board wouldn't have that authority for federal legislation and acts that are privy to employees' rights. So you would not be able to change that. Does that make sense on the leave part?
President Anderson, Ms. Johnson, yes, it does. It just, I'm just curious if, I think the way that it's written isn't that great. So,
well, that was
are we
recommended by our legal department, and they wrote that is new verbiage in here when it comes to those two benefits, the insurance benefit and the leave benefit. And that's because those are governed by things outside of our control.
Right. No, I understand it now. I just wish that it was better written to make that clear, because the way that it's written isn't clear, which is why I'm questioning it. What is it that we aren't allowed to change? So I don't know if that's something that could be better written or not.
We could take a look at that next year with our legal counsel. For this year, I would recommend that we leave that verbiage in there so we can stay on track to have our contracts out by March 8th. That's our goal. Obviously, Mr. Tyler Moore has expressed that we'll be bringing more, the compensation and everything, March 6th. We'll have one day to get everything within the document and get it out to our employees by March 8th. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My next question is about the 5-day per diem. Can you explain why that was added?
The 5-day per diem when a reduction in force, is that what you're referencing? Yes. Okay. That was not added as far as I know. That was there last year.
It was black-lined amongst all the contracts. And then I was just curious why, because it was on all of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the black line.
I think the only one that it wasn't on was the at-will.
Yeah, an at-will is truly at-will.
Right.
The 5 days is, I didn't believe that was new this year. And Tyler, I know you're looking. Let me look real quick.
It was number 24 for the new certified teacher.
Well, it does look like it's blue lined, but I didn't think that was new to us. That must be some form of legislation that I could look into and get back to you. I will check with our legal counsel as to why that was added. I didn't believe that was new.
Yeah, I was just curious, like what we've done previously without it as well.
I will check and get back with you, absolutely.
There's a sentence that says any subsequent amendment and addendum to this contract must be in writing and signed by both parties.
Yes.
because we as a board have to approve these contracts, why wouldn't that also say, and approved by governing?
Anytime we do an addendum to a contract, much like we did with Ms. Richards this year, it came back to the board. It's under the section where you approve any personnel actions, you would be approving that. We cannot approve a change to salary without the board approving that.
So can we add that verbiage to the contract? Because it's not on the contract. It just says signed by both parties.
But it's part of, I believe it's part of policy that it must come to the board for any change in salary. You see supplements all the time, you see all of the increase in pay, anything we've done this year or years past, those go to the board. Every board meeting, you see the supplements or the additional pay, whether it's for a athletic or for additional duties. Anything of that nature is already coming back to the board. We are mandated to do that anytime pay is increased.
It's mainly just addendum. It's just an agreement between the two parties. The employee and the employer is the addendum, and then it comes to the board to approve the pay at the end. So I think that's, if I understand that correctly. Okay.
Yep. Just like the addendum we did for Mrs. Richards this year. It's exactly like that. Yes, you are understanding correctly.
For the new certified teacher, it looks like they changed it to say certified employee or teacher. Why is that, considering the teachers have their own contract?
So that would be because we have people that come on that are certified as like a instructional coach or someone of that nature. Like when we were talking about the classroom site-based fund, there's other employees that fit in that group. So we make it for either or. So because they're new and they're under a probationary period, they have to have a different contract. So we might have a instructional coach that would be new to the district. We would utilize that new teacher certified contract for them.
Okay. And does this language have anything to do with potential changes to Prop 123? Does that impact this contract at all?
Yeah, President Anderson, Vice President Van Hook, in the contract, I don't recall which line it is, but it does allow, if there's any change in state funding, that does allow the district to come back and add an additional increase to the contract. It goes both ways, though, both add and decrease. And so it would, again, fall under a supplement. We would bring it back to the board for approval. But yeah, the contract language does have that. I don't see that number off the top of my head, but I know it's in there.
Okay. My concern, I guess, is, and I'm sure you're aware, they want to give, under Prop 123, they want to give raises to teachers, and then there's an argument that it shouldn't just be teachers, it should be able to cover all staff. So by saying certificated teacher or certificated employee, if they did decide that it would be all staff, it would be able to cover them under this contract, right?
Or any of the other contracts as well also have that language in it.
Yeah, so it's line 12 of the new certified teacher contract, but it's that same language. It basically states if additional revenue becomes available to the district throughout the legislative appropriation, state sales tax revenue, payment of back revenue, et cetera, the district has authorization to go back and provide a supplemental income pending board approval. So
perfect. Okay, and then, I'm sorry, I do have a lot of questions. Last year I was new, so I didn't know as much as I do today. So pardon me for my questions. many of the contracts had 186 and 190 days removed. Can you explain that?
A new teacher will be here for 190 days. They're new, so they have 4 additional days for professional development and onboarding. The certified teacher who is returning would have 186 days.
Okay, so that language is also in the pathologist contract.
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Again, they're certified staff, so they do have days allocated to their contract. Every contract also has a calendar that goes with it that HR creates and that we provide the employee when we provide their contract.
So by removing the number of days, then so their contract has no number of days listed. So how do they know what?
They have a calendar and they're accountable to that calendar, and those are work days that they have to adhere to.
Okay, so the calendar becomes part of their contract.
Correct.
Sorry, anybody else have questions while I go through my notes? As far as the benefits and signing the contract early, well, I guess I should say, when is open enrollment for benefits?
That doesn't start towards the end of April. I think we just posted that calendar. I think it was about April 27th, and that'll be about a 2-week span. And my benefits team will head out to all the sites and meet with employees one-on-one as needed. That'll be open enrollment.
Okay. And when are you hoping to get contract out? Prior to open enrollment?
Absolutely. Contracts will go out on August 8th, or why do I want to say August? I want summer. March 8th is the projected date for contracts to go out. Sorry.
Have you ever had anyone concerned about rates? So if they sign their contract early and benefits aren't till, open enrollment's a month later, and when they find out what the rates are during open enrollment, anybody have any concerns about that, knowing that they signed early?
They have concerns about the rates of our health insurance, but it doesn't affect their signing the contract. Usually, Tyler and I are able to negotiate to keep our employee rate low, as low as possible and covered by the district. And then your family or your spouse rates, he can elaborate a little bit on that. But we've never had somebody come back and say, I wish I hadn't signed my contract because the rates are too high.
Got it. Okay.
President Anderson, Vice President Van Hook, yeah, so we offer benefits to employees who are eligible for benefits at no cost, right? It's just the spousal, right, if they're bringing on dependents, at that point in time, we have in our insurance program right now, basically a cost to that employee to bring on additional insured. So the employees already, whether they sign the contract or not, they're already guaranteed benefits. It's just to the extent of what our benefits package can be. And we've had conversations as a board about enhancing our benefits platform, and we're working on that. But the employees guaranteed benefits once they sign the contract, because as long as they're eligible. So it typically doesn't come into conversation because they know they're going to get benefits. It just depends on what the district can do to increase their coverage in some of those areas, ancillary areas, and the whole medical plan as a whole. So,
yeah, for me, I think if I sign a contract with my employer and then I get my, enrollment and realize my deductible is going to be outrageous, and now I'm stuck in my contract. I'm just curious if that's ever happened.
Not that I'm aware
Board
of.
Member Van Hook. So I say this as a former teacher and with as much tact as possible. I feel like teachers in the state of Arizona very much our understanding of the fact that our benefits are not good for being in this state as far as healthcare is concerned. A good portion of our teachers rely on their partners or get healthcare elsewhere, which is part of the reason why we've had conversations in the past of trying to do more to help there, because it is widely understood, widely discussed, and it is added to the ample frustrations that teachers in general have. As somebody with a disability that is directly related to my overall health and well-being, I feel you deeply with respect to that, and I think that is important, and I think it's beneficial when we do start talking about some of these healthcare things to keep in mind, so we, do the best we can, so that way we're honoring the people who agreed to work before they kind of knew. So I appreciate it.
I promise one last question. The pathologist and therapist contracts, I'm just curious why we have 2 contracts when they're, because I looked up each title just to see what the difference is. And the only thing I could tell is that a pathologist has to be licensed and a therapist does not. Is that the reason for the 2 separate contracts? Everybody's looking at Shauna.
Vice President Van Hook, are you referring to the speech and language pathologist and the speech and language therapist?
Yes.
The speech and language therapist certificate was a certificate in the past that is no longer available. So an individual going to school to be a speech and language pathologist can no longer get that certificate. We do have some staff that were grandfathered in, and so that's the reason for the 2 different contracts.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
I just want to ask a question regarding Dean of Students. I'm just curious why, and they work in the office with the principal and the assistant principal, correct? And they have an administrative position. But it's sad to see that the principal and the assistant principal get 15 days of general leave and the Dean of Students only gets 11. I didn't know if that.
They're only 11-month employees.
Oh, they don't work the same?
No.
Okay, then that's
The
my
others
bad.
are 12-month employees, and I think that's the difference of general leave.
Okay, well, I tried, Dean of Students. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, this is an action item. I move to approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 employee contracts. And a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to the future agenda items, you can see on the screen, we have a list for community education update, AP dual enrollment update, CTE update, Higley Leadership Academy information item, and a handbook update. I had asked maybe a couple of board meetings ago for an AI update of how AI was being used in the classroom. Is that still something that we can get at a board meeting as the information item?
President Anderson, yes, we are still in the elementary phases of that. Like I'm going to a conference on Friday with the 2 instructional coaches, our technology instructional coaches, and we're working as an ed services team to draft our vision for that within the district. So I respectfully ask for a little more time, Yeah, because we know it's important. We just want to wrap our head around it and, move forward thoughtfully, so.
Jealous should get to go to that conference.
Excuse me?
The conference should probably be mind-blowing in some ways.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, right?
Yeah. Anybody else on future agenda items? Okay, this is our favorite, not our favorite. Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to add policy KDDA.
Policy KBB, is that the one? Media?
Yes.
KBBA?
KD.
DDA. Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
for review?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. I motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Which carries 5-0. Have a wonderful evening, everyone in here.
I didn't even have that as an alternative option with the letters. I saw it in the one of them was here. Right. Okay, yeah. And now they're here. Sometimes they're clerks, sometimes.
Your microphone's on. My microphone's on.